Hello and welcome back to Magic in the Noise. Today we have a really special live stream for you. We have Tom Matt of Upsight Vision, who's going to be talking to us about some really intriguing events and experiences that he's had with Upsight Vision. And then we're going to share data that the public remote viewers have gathered and shared with us about the target that I set out based on a conversation that David and I had with Tom Matt earlier this year. So to start off, let's have all the viewers just introduce themselves to the audience and just say a few words about yourself if you want to. First, though, we'll start with my co-founder for Magic in the Noise. That's David.
Hi, I'm David, the other half of Magic in the Noise, remote viewer, and very exciting today. It's the first time that we've basically broken StreamYard. We have so many viewers. It's shocking to me. And I was talking to Sasha prior to the show, and for me, I think it's quite profound to be able to get, I think it's at least 9 viewers we have, maybe 10, 9 viewers on the target. So publicly, a public target with 9 viewers being presented is pretty unusual. And so I think that that's quite amazing. And I'm looking forward, of course, to seeing what everybody gets.
Cheers. And John?
Hi, I'm John. I am a remote viewer. I've used the TDRV methodology. I've been remote viewing for a little over a year and a half, and I'm from the States.
Nice.
Hi, I'm Cody. I've been remote viewing for about 4 years, and the method I use is CRV.
And Jeff?
I'm Jeff. I'm from the Chicagoland area, use HRVG, have been remote viewing for about 3 years, and I want to tell a quick little story. Had a friend that I met about 20 years ago who came up to me at a trade show, and he introduced himself by saying, "Hi, my name's Joe. I hear that you're weird like me. People like us need to stick together. Let's be friends." So I'm going to say to Tom, "You're weird like me. We should be friends."
That's awesome.
I guess I'm up. Right, yeah. So I'm Evan. I live just outside of Boston. I use HRVG and have been remote viewing for just about 3 years now. Nice to meet you, Tom.
And say?
Hello, everyone. I'm Xavier. I am in the Atlanta, Georgia area. The method I use is SRV. I've been remote viewing, I would say, approximately about 2 years right now. And happy to meet everyone.
And Xavier, this is Xavier's first time, so we're glad to have you here. Thank you so much. And you had good data, so yeah, it's great to see. And I think you're our first SRV remote viewer to join the live stream, so that's exciting. And Chris?
Hey everyone, I'm Chris. I've been remote viewing for a few years now, and I'm using Sasha's methods. And I'm based in Belgium, so go Europe.
Nice. And then we'll have Michael introduce yourself before Tom.
Hey everybody, my name is Michael. I've been remote viewing for almost 2 years now, and I've been using Sasha's full spectrum illumination method basically since January for that, and I'm from Canada.
Nice. And today we're doing things a little bit differently. Because we have so many viewers, we're going to be swapping people in and out from the screen. And so before I introduce Tom, I just want to let people know we have Claudia. So let's have Claudia introduce herself. There we go. Claudia?
Okay, I can't see you, but hopefully you can see me. I'm Claudia from the Netherlands. I'm doing remote viewing now for around 3 years, and I also work with Sasha's method, the full spectrum illumination method. So this works very well for me. So that's it.
Thank you, Claudia. And we have John Dixon, but we've had some confusion over the room size on StreamYard. So, oh, here he is now. So let's put him in. There's John. John, if you wanted to introduce yourself. We don't see your face yet.
Oh, my name is John. I've been a remote viewer about 4.5 years now. I use CRV as my method, and I've been doing these projects now with you guys for the last handful of targets, and yeah, hopefully be here for a while and continue having fun.
Nice. Yeah, John, you've been with us. You also were with us earlier in the year. So we've been doing this for over a year now. I'm going to be switching things up for 2026, but we'll talk about that in December. And finally, we have Tom. Tom, welcome. Tell us about yourself.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, thanks for the invitation, everyone. Xavier, I'm in the Atlanta area too, so that's very cool. Yes, so let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'll keep this short and sweet, but I want to make sure I cover everything so everyone has an understanding of what I bring to the table and what I can do. 13 years ago, I came out of a mental health crisis, and I evolved or developed this ability to see these holographic images that are everywhere around us. Not only can I see them, I can interact with them and change them with a thought. And I went out to the Institute of Noetic Sciences last year, or 2023, and I was tested. Am I still in the group, guys, or have I been kicked out? Is it because I'm talking? Am I out of there?
No,
Yeah,
you're in
he's
the
just
group.
highlighted.
Okay,
I
sorry.
put you as the center stage to give
Okay,
you.
I just see I'm talking to myself. Okay, I want to make sure. All right. Anyway, so there's studying the brain states, and there's an academic paper that's actually coming out this year. It's been under peer review. It will be out later this year. I'm very excited about that. So as I said earlier, I don't consider myself an expert remote viewer at all. But while I'm using Upsight Vision, I absolutely can go to these different places, and I can see these different things, whether they're non-human intelligence, whether it's over a neighborhood, wherever it is. I don't typically try to hit targets like you guys are trained for. In fact, I don't even know if I could do it, right? Because I've been so focused on of developing this ability that I really haven't focused on that as much as I know I could. So what's really, and I love that Sasha and David wanted to do this today, because one of the things that I can do, I can see things at not just the quantum level, the small DNA, but this biosphere plasma field that also interacts with our 3D world. And it's consistent and it changes. So when I am locked into it and seeing it, I can see what's here. I use the sample of a cell dividing, right? From 1 to 2 to 4 to 8 to 16 turns into a frog, turns into a person. So this target was one of the things I see, the DNA, and how this invisible biosphere, whatever we want to call it, is interacting with it. So the fact that it is quantum and small, I find it fascinating that, because some of the things you guys, there were some things I was kind of blown away. I'll just leave it at that. We'll go through it. There's some that were pretty wild. Anyway, so that's it. I think that covers it. If you have any questions, ask at the time. I know, like I said, I want to keep it short and sweet, but that's my experience here. Like I said, I think you guys are probably better at that than I am as far as picking a target, probably because you practice. But I'm very excited to be here, and thanks for the invite, Sasha and David.
Thank you, Tom. And so, so for the audience, if you want to learn more about Tom's Upsight Vision, Tom, do you want to give your website URL and they can check that out? It's in the description box.
Yeah, it's tom-matte.com. And all my information, there's everything about me on there. Past history. I wrote a memoir about my unwell years. I talk about the paper. I'm actually doing readings for people now because I've learned that I started doing this year, and I don't want to do a commercial here, but I can kind of lock into other people. Like, I hear your voice. I've learned, wait, hold on a minute. This is the person I'm seeing. And it's almost like a waking dream analysis. Anyway, there's a lot of more information about me that you can look at there if you decide to do that.
Yeah. So I just wanted to let people know. And so I think for me, it's exciting to be able to bridge this Upsight Vision, seeing holograms in the moment live without the tasking, and then bringing the remote viewing aspect to it, because remote viewing is so precise and detailed and accurate. But one of the strengths of remote viewing is that you can task anything. And so I thought that would be fun to kind of bring that to bear on the Upsight Vision. And the Upsight Vision, I think that that's a whole different way of seeing reality. So it's really quite fascinating. And I was curious to see what the remote viewers would make of such a weird target. And I'm excited everyone did really, really well. And so I'm going to, go ahead.
I want to say one other thing, because this is the analogy I use when I talk about Upsight Vision. It's like everybody can sing. I think everybody can do this, or everybody has the potential to do this. Everybody can sing, but everybody can't be Adele or Frank Sinatra, right? So that's the case. And even with the remote viewing, I may be able to do this. You guys are hitting the C note, if we want to use that analogy. Sometimes when I'm singing, I never hit the C note, so I might not see what you're tasked to see. So I think there's something there to, to think, a good way to think about this.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree. And so I'm going to start. Let me share my screen. And again, David, just let me know if I have to.
Yeah, if I see somebody needs help.
And so there we go. Add to stage. There we go. So this is the target. We had talked to Tom about DNA, about the field influencing the DNA. And Tom, actually, do you want to give a description of the candy cane hooks?
Yeah, so to see this up here and having me talk about this with you, I cannot tell you what pleasure this gives me. So I want to thank you again. So imagine this, so whatever I'm seeing, this holographic representation of the DNA. But that doesn't appear like this to me. Now, remember, this is what we're taught in school, and really doesn't look like this, the DNA strand, but it's close enough. The things that are the candy canes, the stream through it, and the circles are not typical parts of the DNA, or at least as I see this field running through the DNA, let's call it, that's the additional element. In this space, I've since think this may be a plasma field. I called it dark matter stream when I created this years ago, but there's a stream going, dark energy going, something going through it. There's a dark matter rings around it, and the candy cane hang from those rings. So that's why I see it. It's funny. You could sit there and say, if anyone has some ideas about why this works, I'd love to hear it. The fact that it's so consistent, and then there's a next evolution to the next piece of it, is extraordinary to me. Now, again, you're not going to go to a scientist and show this to them, because they'll be like, well, we look through a quantum, or we're looking through an electron microscope, and it's not there. So we're not there yet, but for this, it's perfect.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
So everything we don't think of traditional is the extra elements that show up in the Upsight Vision field.
Yes. And so for the audience, along the bottom, you're going to see the names of the remote viewers, their method, the type of, except there's an error in Zay's, because Zay is using SRV, which is the Farsight method. And I copy pasted from Michael's column over. Sorry about that, Xavier. But yeah, so those are the names of the viewers, and their data will be framed by the color, so you know whose data we're looking at.
I have one quick. I know I shouldn't, but I'm curious. Tom, the hooks, are they uniform, consistent, or do they vary? Meaning, does a ring always have 5 hooks? Are they always in the same spot? Do they shift around?
No, they vary. They move around. We'll talk about that, but they definitely move around. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, John,
can I make a comment on the candy canes before we even get any further?
Of course.
So I'm essentially a candy scientist by my nature. So that's what I do for a living. So making candy canes is one of the things I do. So deoxyribo, what that basically is, it's a form of ribose, which is a sugar. Sugar is what holds the amino acids together in DNA. So to me, the candy cane is a representation of the ribose sugar.
That's so profound.
Yeah. Agreed.
That makes so much sense, Jeff. And that's, I think, an insight from remote viewers, because we know that the way data is presented to us is shaped. Sometimes it's a metaphor, sometimes. And Tom, I remember you had told us this in the interview, where you had seen an elbow in Greece, and that was a message.
Yeah, it was elbow grease. No, I asked the universe, what do I need to do to get to the next stage? And it showed an elbow and a grease pen. And I'm sitting there going, what is that? And I'm like, wow, the universe has a sense of humor. This was the first year I was doing it. And that's happened since then. And anybody that's done anything like this understands that that's not unusual. But the first time it happened, it was pretty wild.
Exactly. And so I think that that's often the case with remote viewers, where if they're looking for a solution to something, how do I do this? And if they draw a pan of grease and, you know, an arm, they might not understand what that means. And so they'll think, oh, I missed the target. But it's like, well, no, because it's trying to show you the elbow grease. You have to apply yourself. You have to work harder. You have to practice, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I took out of it. Now, the sugar. So now I don't want to get off on a tangent here, but what's the role of sugar? Because now I'm like, well, wait, now I know more about what I see, but what do you know what the role of sugar is in this strand?
So my understanding is that the sugar is what holds each of the amino acids together. That's how it builds into a strand.
Okay.
And somehow that has to do, the sugar plays a role in how DNA replicates, but I don't quite, I'm not familiar with that in the great detail.
Okay, that's enough for this combo. That's all I get anyway. I'm not a geneticist, and I haven't been drawn to that the way I was with mathematics, you know?
Okay.
But that's interesting because so then the sugar is acting as a hook for the amino acids, is what you're saying, Jeff?
Yes.
So that's very, very cool.
Great insight, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very helpful. So John, we're back at you. Do you want to say a little bit about what you saw? Because it seems like you saw the hooks that.
Yeah, I described it as hooked, long ridge. That was pretty much on my first scan right away. And I saw, for every time I drew something like that, I saw so many candy canes throughout my session. And I said hooked, long ridge, but it was a candy cane that I visually saw. I just didn't want to I try to keep it low level. Yeah, and then I was getting a lot of strange perceptions about like something inside something else. And a lot of my perceptions had the same hook shape. Couldn't quite figure out why, but now I kind of know.
Yeah, you really hit the ground running on this one. This was some of the first data points in your session. And then, Michael, do you want to talk a little bit about this? Because I think it's a really good match for the dark matter rings that Tom was talking about.
Excuse me, muted. Yeah, so for this, I just kind of got the idea of these like sort of spinning discs essentially that were kind of in counterpoints, and there were a lot of different kind of forces that were maintaining these kind of in a balance there. I said dynamism and activity target under scrutiny feels like the implications of phenomena or events under scrutiny are not appropriately or completely grasped. And yeah, interconnection under hydrostatic tension, which would make sense, I think, with like how DNA kind of maintains its structure through a lot of the hydrogen bonding with the water molecules that are around it and maintaining it.
Yes.
Setting components in a chain where causes one area percolate and induce effects in other areas.
And one of the
DNA said for me, the part of me didn't quite feel biological. Maybe there was something else I was picking up on.
So that's an interesting point. So there were two things here. One, your drawing is such I think an exact match to the image and the target feedback. And in my tasking, I had said, describe what Tom sees, right? And so I think it makes it really interesting, so that the remote viewers are not going to the feedback, they're going to the hologram itself. And so to see that match is, I think, really cool. And then I also I did think it was interesting that you saw the DNA, but you're like, it reminds you of DNA, but it doesn't feel biological. And I think it's because I wasn't giving you as the target the DNA itself. I wasn't taking it as there are hooks in our DNA. I was taking it as Tom Matt has seen these hooks in the DNA in this hologram. Describe what he's seeing. And so I think that's why you picked up on the DNA, but it didn't feel biological, because it's not. It's a hologram of a biological thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree with Sasha, because it sounds like it's altering using man-made, or some kind of force that we aren't aware of yet. But I agree with what Sasha said about it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
again, I don't think this is whatever it's acting with is not biological. That's the feeling. Again, don't know much about it. Let me ask a question, Sasha. They didn't see any of this, so they didn't even see the image over to the left, correct?
no, they didn't see anything. Remember the email that I sent you. I basically just gave them a target code and said, "Go do your remote viewing. Enjoy."
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
These are unbelievable, actually.
Yeah, they're totally blind, like 100% blind. I have no clue. And this is part, for the public that might not catch this, I'm trying to think from the public perspective, so like maybe catch things that might interest the public or they might not see initially. But, the fact that cobalt blue is written from the remote viewing with the ring, right? And then you got the image over there. So my question is that art, I'm pretty sure, because I think I've seen this before, Tom, this is your actual art that you put out, correct? And the second question is, when you do see these, are they kind of a cobalt blue color, these rings?
So yeah, that's a good question. And the reality is this: sometimes there's a color tint, right? But all of these are typically a clear hologram, like you would see. They're clear. Sometimes there's a color tint. Nothing is static. Everything is always moving. So that's the thing. So the yellow and the blue are not exact, and the purple, I needed to make sure people understood the difference when I put this out there. But the blue, don't make no mistake, there's a blue element to this. There can be.
And
I think it's profound that it was Michael, right? You were able to get the color. I mean, the rings. I mean, there's like, no doubt, right? Some of the stuff with remote viewing, you have to kind of like interpret the data because the skill of the person is part of the situation. Sometimes it's not the skill. The skill is there, but it's more of the analytics that you have to have enough knowledge with the analytics to see it, right? But your clarity there with a match to the art is, I'm sure Tom's like, what the F? He must have
and there's another element
seen
to
this
it
before.
I don't know if I should talk about that now or wait till we're done with all of them. Right? Let's wait. I'll tell at the end.
Yeah, we'll go through a bit more data first. I did also want to say, it's interesting to me, Michael, you saw the cobalt blue for the hologram. I did the hill and we talked about it. So Michael joined me for a live stream on my session on the hill from the telepathy tapes a few weeks ago. It feels like just yesterday, but and I also picked up on that idea of cobalt blue light. And I'm wondering now if there's something about things that are holographic or things that are constructs in consciousness that ties into that. David, what do you think about that in terms of the blue light?
Yeah, I could see what you're saying, that there would be a linkage between it, because Sasha and I have seen this many times. Sure, at some point we could probably put together like a paper, like a real actual scientific paper on this, but in terms of the data, but multi-layers of information, data that are interlinked. Because in my mind, from my experiences, this is how the system actually works. It's super complex, and it actually works on layers like multi-dimensional. And so you can actually, if you can see it within the remote viewing work, which means not just a session, but across viewer sessions and across sessions in time. And so, and there's linkages, right? If you can see it, you're like, holy crap, I can actually see like information that's spread across time. And so I think you're right that this probably represents consciousness. Like my guess would be probably that these rings are maybe based on what you just said, based on Tom's information, based on Michael's information. My guess would be is that they're a consciousness construct, like a form of physics that we don't really know about yet, would be one way to say it, but it's within the realm of consciousness and rule sets that work and operate at that level. And so Tom's able to pick up on the structure that is redundant, but that structure then manifests into the physicality, which is another set of physics rules that are interlinked but appear completely independent. But that exactly what you said, Sasha. Yeah, so that's my interpretation. I see that as being highly probable.
And I want to add something, because this is important. I literally am having an aha moment right now. Sometimes when I do the Upsight Vision, out of nowhere, a cobalt blue, when you point a red, they have the laser pointers, right? Everyone has it as teacher, the kids do it and stuff like that. out of nowhere, and I still have not figured out why it happens, because there's no pattern I've been able to detect yet. There's like a cobalt blue that just shows up and it's gone. It's not long enough to stay there. It's like some NHI is pointing this thing at me for I don't know why. I literally can't figure the pattern, but the color is extraordinary. So I'm going to be spiraling on that a little bit. Okay.
Can I add something?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, and I think I've mentioned it to you and David on a talk that we had, but when I participate in like psychedelic mushrooms, whenever that happens, I'll look up at the sky and I'll actually see, hexagon blue, cobalt blue, or electric blue hex grids that line the sky up. Like, yes, I'm not promoting, whatever the use of those, but they do show up, and I do see the relevancy of what you guys are talking about. And the color cobalt blue must obviously have something to do if there's 4 or 5 people out of this chat that keep seeing that color come up with that kind of thing.
And that we're specifying cobalt. That's what's so weird, is that I wrote cobalt blue and Michael has cobalt, and we're not just talking about like, some kind of blue light. It's very specific shade, or that's so weird and fascinating, the way that comes through. For the audience, John and I also had a conversation about my Hill session data, and that is going to be posted soon, but only for our patrons on our Patreon page. And so if you want to catch that, then just join our Patreon, and the wonder and awe tier, it'll be available to those patrons. And so now back to the data. If I can find it on my computer. Maybe I can. Yeah, there we go. And so, John, we're back to you, because you really were, it seems, flooded with the visual data of the DNA.
Yeah, and it's really strange, because almost all of my data and all my sessions is conceptual. I very rarely get like actual visuals that align with the actual target visual. But yeah, I noticed that, and I kept getting these like lines painted, or these lines that I think the perception was like something about there being something in the kind of interstitial space. Like there's, I wasn't really sure what that was getting at, but yeah, when I saw the target and I saw that cross section, and yeah, that looked like there was some resemblance there. So I was kind of surprised. It's pretty neat. Yeah.
Tom, what did you think when you saw this?
Yeah, I was blown away. I mean, all of these I've blown away, because there's things here that, again, I'll talk to you at the end about that happen that I have it that are not on a snapshot. Remember, this is a snapshot, right? This is a snapshot. So when David asked how they move around certain ways, right? And they do certain things. And they're like, well, I'll just tell you, at least about the candy cane parts. The candy cane parts are free floating, like as if you put a candy cane over a ring, so we can move left and right. The question is, why does it move left and right? Sometimes they clump together, and then other things happen. So they're definitely all they move around, and there's not always 5. It's not like, you know what I mean? There's not always 8 or 6 or something like that. So yeah, this is extraordinary.
And I did think it was interesting that John, you have the kind of star in a circle shape, and the cross section of the DNA. It's something that I hadn't seen before, maybe 5 years ago. And then all of a sudden, 5 years ago, people started sharing images of the cross section of the DNA. And it is these kind of circular star-shaped patterns. And so we'll see as we move through the data that a lot of people were picking up on that. And I thought that was really cool.
That's a really great catch, Sasha. And John, good job. That's amazing. It's just, again, I have to point it out, because the general public and even the remote viewing community in general would get something like this, and they would never, ever, ever make the connection, right? Sasha is able to isolate this information quickly through research and her intellect and her intuitive abilities. She's able to do this, right? But otherwise, this would just be lost. Nobody would ever know, like, hey, you had an epic hit. This is what it represents. See the correlation, blah, blah, blah. Never. It would just be gone. did miss the target, worthless data, junk. It's like, no, that's not right. It's actually good data. You have to have somebody smart enough that's as an analyst to be able to lock it down.
You're too kind, David. But it is, it does make me think for people, when you're looking at your data, don't be too hard on yourselves. Make sure that you're really doing a good analysis before you decide that you've missed the target.
Well, you know what else?
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yeah, please do.
So you know what else is interesting too? Let's keep in mind, this is not one location. It's not a Chinese sub off the coast of California. This is everywhere, right? I don't know where this is everywhere. I mean, if this is happening in us, all of us, then it's everywhere. Maybe that speaks to why everybody can get it, right? Why you're having a better result and seeing exactly what it is, as opposed to thinking intuitively what it is.
Yeah, definitely. David, I'm going to need you to jump in here because my computer is not working properly.
Okay.
So I might have to exit and come back in again.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. So my mouse won't let me exit yet, but Tom, if you want to maybe talk a little bit about what you were going to tell us later while I leave and come back. I'll be right back.
or if you have any thoughts on just the portions that have been shown so far.
Well, no, I'm curious about what other people think about what I just said about it not being 3,000 miles away. It could actually be in you, right? It could be in your wife or spouse or whoever you're looking at. This is not just one target. Even though it's a target that's got multiple locations. And I just wonder what you guys think of that.
And when you say that, you're referring to the concept of the hologram, or you're referring to the concept of the DNA?
When I see this, right, I dial this in and I see what happens, right? I see something. This is a snapshot of it. This happens all the time, whether we know it or not. The same way cells move through our body. So even though they're dialing into this, and I guess it's dialing into what I was thinking and stuff like that, it actually is everywhere. Does that make sense? Like oxygen? Yeah. Okay. That's all. I'm just curious what people that do this, like you guys do, think about that observation. And if you're like, no, that doesn't make sense to me because I'm targeting what you were thinking for the hologram, and that's why it works.
Well, I mean, just for me, my experience is both direct and with remote viewing, which are, different things, but essentially paints a very strong picture to me that what you just said is correct. Essentially that we're part of a collective. That collective has access to all the information, and remote viewing is a tool that one can use to direct that at a specific point in time and a location to collect that information. So I see the hologram, the information you're getting. Maybe you can't control it as well. Sometimes you can, but to me, it's the same thing. You're probably just accessing. I mean, on one level, all of us are just accessing like a database, but your interface is much more sophisticated because you're actually able to see like really complex holograms. So it's like different than how we as remote viewers would do it. We can get visuals that can be real life. It can be by location, like we're really there, but it's still physically, it's not like a hologram. You're actually like at the environment. So I'm saying like our interaction can be like, it can look like a photograph. It could just be a feeling, like you don't see anything, but you're getting like the feeling of something that's totally accurate for being at the site. So I'm just saying like our interface that we use, each individual, whether it's a tool like remote viewing or a natural gift, or like in your situation, Tom, where something has changed and allowed you to see this very differently complex kind of way to interact. To me, my guess is it's just more interfacing, but the core piece is the same for all. We're all pulling from the same core.
Yeah, good.
I'm back. Thank you. So my computer does not want to do PowerPoint anymore. So we're going to be looking at this on Adobe, which is fine. And so John, this is John Dixon now. You had really amazing conceptual data in addition to the physical descriptions. Your summary was incredible. So do you want to talk a little bit about the data that you have here?
Yeah. So when I use CRV, so I maybe it's a crutch, I don't know, but I use ideograms, after I'm giving the coordinates, and a lot of my data can be drawn from that ideogram. Just to kind of explain some background for Tom. But yeah, so right off the bat, it just felt very not fabricated in terms of the reality, but automated and, kind of like a copy almost. Like if somebody was using this like a CGI or autonomous processing sort of thing to replicate a natural process, is what I kind of felt out of it.
Yeah, again, so you're picking up a lot like Michael's saying, like reminds me of DNA, but it doesn't feel biological.
Right.
And you're saying like it feels like a copy or a decoy or a replacement. So I thought that was really amazing that, again, it shows that you have the discernment to know what you're looking at and not guessing to fill in. Not it looks like DNA, therefore it must be DNA, therefore I see DNA, right? Like I think that ability to pick up on the nuance, those subtle nuances, it's so valuable in remote viewing data to be able to do that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's like a phase or stage 5, but just continuously doing it throughout your session. That way you can break down those concepts consistently throughout, rather than just having one big, stage 5 to try to break down the conceptuals.
And in terms of the ideograms, I don't think it's a crutch. I think people use what works for them, and you get used to doing things in a certain way. Whether you need it or you don't, I think is irrelevant. It's, do you enjoy using them? Do you get value from using them? And if you do, then that works for you. You're getting amazing data. So then right? Like I think I wouldn't worry too much about, different people had different styles, and yours is working for you. So really good data there. And then Xavier, you had amazing data as well. And there's really strong similarities between your data and John,
Yeah.
the other John. We're going to call John P. and John Dixon, we're going to call Dixon. John P. we're going to call John, just for clarity. And so I did see a lot of similarities between John and your work, Xavier. And I know that you had an interpretive overlay of like, okay, these are, maybe UFO kind of crafts and they're moving over a landscape. And that's okay, because in remote viewing, you often get an overlay that is not correct, but that's why we do analysis, so that we can look at your data and pull the pattern out. So did you want to talk a little bit about your data here?
Sure. So with this, I kept getting like a feeling of something as far as in harness. It's like an energy. I couldn't really pinpoint exactly, even probing like the environment. I felt like it was some kind of operation where I did see like special subjects where something was being harnessed from them. And I guess it kind of goes to because it's like, how this is in pretty much everybody. We all may have disability, but this image, I think I was picking up like in a covert operation where this tactic was actually being studied and harnessed. It was like very coming from like select individuals. If that kind of clears everything up.
Yeah, and I think that there are two layers to look at this. So the one layer is what you're saying, like, is someone trying to harvest this ability? Is someone monitoring this ability? Is someone interfering with our DNA? But then the other one is to look at this as the data pattern, that the imagery comes through, and then our conscious mind tries to make sense of it and says, this must be a landscape, and these must be trees, right? But they're weird trees. And so, but I think that the pattern is there, and the data was good.
Yeah, good job, Zach.
Yeah, I really kept getting that kind of image correct. So I definitely.
I'd be interested to see if you could overlay that last image with like a DNA string of like, like the RNA DNA sequences, and see if there's any kind of correlation in that. That'd be kind of neat.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Well, it speaks to the intelligence. When you wrote, I can't remember who was, but wrote about their intelligences behind it. I literally think that every time I see this happening, right? Whether it's intelligence from the DNA level or it's another intelligence. And if we piggyback that on what Xavier saw, make no mistake, I've thought about this. Something out, some non-human intelligence don't even have to be in the same room with us or whatever. They can literally alter the DNA at will, the same way we do with CRISPR. I don't know if that's true, but it certainly seems possible with all the things we know now.
Yeah.
And what I liked, Xavier, I could see that you were really trying to get the details of the hooks on the left here. And that you saw right beside this data, you had the bright light. And so again, you're seeing that bright light, the hologram, the cobalt blue we were talking about earlier. So you really did have really good target contact here for the DNA, the bright lights, the hooks, trying to describe them, and the cross section. Yeah, so that was good. And then here, I kind of thought this kind of looks like maybe the DNA man or the chromosome man who's giving orders for the development of the organism or the development of the cell. And so it's coming through in a personification.
Yeah, and and just to piggyback on like what I said earlier, for this probe and this well, looking at this image that came, for some reason, again, I kept picking up behind the scenes of what this could be, if that makes sense. And I guess the general environment, it's like a deep operation. With this one, like I said, it could be, I was getting a feel of military involvement. And then, like I said, I think I really was with the colors as well, too, so.
Yeah, and I think as well, so it could be actual military involvement. It could also be the idea that the genes that are turned on and off, there's epigenetic phenomenon going on, and it's very precise, and the genes turn on and off based on what's around them, and they just have to follow the order, right? And the chromosome gives the orders of what's going to happen. And so I don't know, I just think it's really fun data. It comes through in a really good way.
Yeah, I like the perspective.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we have Jeff, who as well, Jeff, you're also picking up on what I am interpreting as a cross section of the DNA. But what I thought was really funny is you had the S kind of curve, and then you had it all rolled up. So that idea of the DNA being all wound up in the helix. Do you want to say a little bit about this?
So I do definitely want to say something about what's in the lower left corner there. So knowing what the target is now, so that essentially is the view of the DNA from the top. And when I was drawing those lines, that had a lot more meaning to me in terms of, so basically that's one amino acid on one side and a similar thing but different shape on the other. So that's like two of the amino acids pairs in DNA. I'm quite sure that's what I drew.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Wow. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I like that. Can I get back to it, though, is the question. And we're going to see this in Cody's data as well. So that idea, the specific markings on the cross-section, the specific meaning. And then, Jeff, I thought in your overall sketch, it was really interesting to see because you have the bookshelf, so the books, the data, the genes, all the information that's all stacked and all in order. And then the hooks, right? You have all basically the hooks that are drawn in the couch and in the carpet. And then you actually said right here that you're seeing the top of a cane. I thought that was really fun.
Good job.
So saying cane is one thing. So basically the site sketch there is if you went to the bigger picture is a room. And one of the things that was characteristic of that room is that the lighting in the room were gas lights, which puts it in a very specific time frame. So that was like 1860 to 1910. And there are several other things that maybe didn't quite fit Sasha's interpretation of what the target was. I actually think a lot of my data would be very interesting to talk about offline. I would say that what my subconscious did was I didn't look at DNA. I very specifically looked at Tom's DNA, and I was looking at his either mother or grandmother.
She was, let's put it this way, she was an avid reader, literally stocked bookshelves. That's kind of extraordinary if that's true.
So, and there's this woman with a blue dress who occurred several times in my data, and I'd love to talk to you offline about that sometime.
Sure.
Yeah, I did for the audience. I don't have all the data in the slides. Some is cut for privacy or sensitivity, and then some is just cut for time because there's just so much data. I was going to say, I think from this point forward, I won't be doing retasks because there's too much data. You guys are so good. You get such good data, and then there's just too much of it. And so I think from here on in, it'll just be everyone just gets one session in. Chris, did you want to say, you made a really interesting comment about Xavier's, but you were in the back area. Now you're in the front area.
Yeah, if you can put the sketch back on. Yeah, I just find it interesting that here, if you look at this as the two strains of DNA, and in the DNA you have, I don't know if it's called attributes, but you have the ATCG. I don't remember what it stands for, adenosine, that kind of stuff, but it's always a binding of two. And here, if you look, you have like an empty square, a full square, a tree, and the ideogram of biologics. And so that's 4. And I find that interesting, an interesting match.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I had said something similar before they brought you back from the back room. But yeah, that's on point. That's what I see too.
Yeah, I think that's a really good insight.
Definitely.
And then I have to kick someone down. Evan, I'm putting you down for a second to bring Cody in. And Cody, you had something to say about the couch.
Or the rug.
Or the rug.
Yeah, the rug's got similar patterns to that circle thing I kept drawing.
That's true. Yeah, and so keep your, I guess, keep that in mind as we move through the slides for the audience. So Jeff, because Cody, I think your data's on the next slide. Jeff, did you want to talk about this? Because I thought that this was amazing. So for everybody else, Jeff sent me this this shield, the shield of Gossel featuring St. James before I gave out feedback. So Jeff, can you tell me a little bit about this? Because I think it's just so interesting that he's carrying the hook to Cain.
So one of the things that reoccurred throughout my data several times is what I called a pilgrim hat. And I actually drew a person holding the hat in his hand as opposed to wearing it on his head. And so this hat came up over and over time in my work. So I did a just simple Google search for pilgrim hat, and this was the first picture that came up. And Sasha loved that there was a cane in the image. And when I saw that image, it's like, okay, this is important. This ties to the target somehow.
And also that you had the 3 hats, and he has the 3 spheres, and he has the 3 crosses. I thought that was such an amazing, and we're going to see in the next slide, it gets even more shocking. If I can get to it. So then when I looked at Cody's data in relation to this that you sent me, Jeff, it just blew me away. So Cody essentially drew the St. James with the shield of Gossel, essentially, with the DNA cross section as his shield. So Cody, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, my whole session was pretty confusing, to be honest, but that come through in the retask, I think, and all the sessions, I just kept getting a circle shape with all that stuff on it, and it felt like a miniature map or something that was meant something. So I couldn't make sense of it, but it felt like a map. that it was engraved, and there was more than one. But yeah, could be the DNA.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can't even. That would think about that. If you didn't know anything, and somebody just like this happened, right? It wouldn't make sense. It would not make sense, and that's kind of perfect. If you look at that shield or whatever, and of course DNA is a map. There's so many pieces here, individually and collectively, that are beyond it's just extraordinary. And but I love the idea of it being a map. I mean, that's how that's how people think of it. So you got it. You were confused, and still you're like, okay, hold on a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, it came through a few different ways, but yeah, that was later on in the session.
But I agree with Tom and with you, Cody. DNA is the mapping of the organism, right?
Yeah.
And so it is a map, and that you have the protector of the DNA, and St. James is the protector as well of travelers. Yeah, there's so many layers here. So I think that's really good data. And then
Good job.
And then let me see, Zay has a comment here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Zay was also picking up on that idea of 3 things, 3 items. We're going to see that in a couple of slides where everyone was really kind of picking up on that as well. And then here, Dixon.
Yeah, that was very interesting. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Xavier, are you?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Sasha. But yeah, I was just saying that's very
Xavier,
interesting.
I'm wondering if your audio is coming from YouTube or is it coming from the live stream? Because YouTube has a 3 to 5 second delay.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Wow, okay.
I wonder if your audio is coming in from.
Should I leave or come back?
No, just if we're aware of it. And so then I know as well. So I know to give you a few more seconds to answer if I ask you a question. But yeah, so Dixon, did you want to say something, John, about your data here?
Yeah, like kind of what Cody was saying, it was kind of confusing with a target like this because the data is so, we're not. And as Tom said, we're not describing a submarine, somewhere, so it just felt like I was in a whole different location of consciousness, I guess, now looking at the feedback, and that this place was built for specific souls to interact with or to I guess a lifestyle of sorts. It's a highly conceptual data, but yeah, it is hard to explain, and maybe it ties into like the fact that we're all here talking in this chat right now. It's like we might live in this reality where we all have a similar soul of some sort to be accepted into this reality, I guess.
Well, and I think it's interesting that you're talking about souls that embody people who are meant to wander.
Mm-hmm.
And here we're talking about St. James, who protects the wanderers, the travelers. There's and then the traveling man, that motto of secret societies and all of this. So I think there's just a lot there that we don't necessarily have time to go into in detail, but I just wanted to kind of acknowledge that.
Yeah, I do want to say something though. Remember, if everyone's dialing in me, right? There's no doubt there was 1 year of my life that I wrote a book, Jesus Goes to Hollywood: A Memoir of Madness, because I literally traveled the globe. You know what I mean? That's spot on. 3 people pulled that in, right? So that's kind of wild, or specific, I should say.
Also, I would love to see a picture of you in that time, because everyone, I think, not everyone, there were a number of sessions that mentioned Gandalf. I wondered if you at some point had a bit of a beard.
So yeah, listen, I when I came out of this, I went to see a counselor, and he's like, "What do you want to be remembered as? And this is 10 years ago, right when I didn't know what was going on. I said, you know what? It feels like I'm supposed to be some kind of Gandalf. I don't consider myself a wizard, but that's what it feels like. So this is really specific and kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And then Evan, I think I have you in the back. So let me bring you to the front and you can tell us about your data. I have to push someone else down. There we go. So Evan, you did a great job here. You have the DNA, you have the cross section, and you have the hooks. And the idea of like something moving. So the motion that Tom was talking about. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your data here?
Sure. Yeah, I wasn't really entirely clear on what I was seeing, but it was definitely microscopic. I got the idea of something kind of parasitic, energetic. I think in one of I actually wrote candy cane in one of the S2 boxes. I tasted a peppermint, which I don't like. And so on the right there, I got the sense of something that you can see down the road coming this way. You're not quite sure what it is, but you know it's coming.
Yeah, that's interesting. And we're going to kind of see what might be coming in a few slides when we look at other people's data. But yeah, you had really, really strong target contact for the visuals, definitely. And then Claudia as well. So Claudia, Claudia, your data, again, you're picking up on the biologic, organic kind of aspect. Let me bring you up. There you go. Tell us a little bit about your data, Claudia. Oh, you're muted. There you go. Oh. Oops, you're muted, Claudia. There we go. Nope, you're still muted. You unmuted and remuted. There you go.
Yeah, I have to do all on the mobile due to the speakers on my laptop not working. Okay, this was one of the first sketches I made. I saw these long things standing. Later on, after the reveal of the target, I thought maybe this were these candy sticks, but they were hollow also, I remember. Yeah, and breakable and moving. So I interpreted as if it was with water, but although maybe the body is 70% water, so maybe
Truthfully,
I
everybody
missed it.
did. Yeah, truthfully, everybody mentioned water around the sticks, the canes, these shapes. And what I thought was really interesting is that then here you mentioned that you see these things growing in a container, and it's something that we often hear in relation to the aliens seeing the humans as containers.
Yeah, it felt very restricted, a bit contained. Like
Yeah.
it's boxed, yeah.
And it fits in with John Dixon's data about the souls in the bodies, right? It's that idea in the bodies of those who wander. So the specific souls are coming into the bodies of those who wander. And so again, that's this idea of like your soul is being contained in the container. And the DNA is related to that. So I thought that was just a nice little connection there. And then the other John, also here, you're also mentioning a container. So how do you see your data relating to Claudia's?
Similar in that sense. Yeah, I definitely had the idea of something stored and contained or captured and contained kind of in different parts of my data. I couldn't really make sense of it, but definitely it was there.
Yeah, I thought it was just an interesting link that people were picking up on, just that correlation. And then, Claudia, you're seeing it as a tree. And again, this is similar to Jeff's rug, the pattern on the rug and on his little couch there. So really nice data there. And then also that you're aware that we're looking for a missing piece of information, right? We're looking for what Tom sees in the
Yeah.
actor.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So really good data there.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Tell me more.
Well, remember the candy cane. This is a snapshot. Before it's something before the candy cane. It doesn't start as a candy cane, right? And I say water. I don't think it's water. I would just call it some kind of energy that it floats in. Imagine before it turns into a candy cane, there's something there surrounding it, like algae and water. That's the best analogy that we can all get our hands around. And it slowly turns into the candy canes and starts hooking on these things. This is can you go back to the other one before this one? It's almost like that's what I see. And you've got it as a fish tank here.
Which one? This one here?
No, what's your name?
I think it's forward.
Yeah, forward. Right there on the bottom right, the fish tank to the right. That's how I see it. It's kind of like that. I see that as a fish tank, right?
Yeah.
That's not exactly, but close enough to make me say, wow. And the fact that I don't think it's water, it's some kind of energy that you can float in though, right? This, whatever this is, can float, or what we call float or drift or whatever, in that energy. That is specific to before the candy cane. So this lands in a different way than the other ones because it's still there. I know you guys see it different, but this is like a piece that's like, hold on a minute, there's another element to it.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, it is. It's very cool.
Sasha, can you go back to the one more, just right there? Upside down or altered reality. Oh, okay. I just saw Evan wrote that, and it made me think that there might have been a correlation to Upsight Vision, like upside down, altered reality. Like it's almost like it might be trying to come out through his interpretation. But anyways, you keep going.
Yeah, that's actually a good catch. Yeah, in John's data. And then here, Claudia, I thought it was interesting because you have, celebration, remembrance. You have some interesting data, the energy of worshiping that we'll talk about a little bit later. And then the military vessel that does come through. And Xavier as well had that feel of military. And so I think that that's just a little interesting connection there. And Claudia, on your words in your chapter 4, I just think it's such a nice encapsulation of the target in general. Right? You have the transformation, transition, the DNA strand, that there's a change that's happening, manipulation, experimentation that has to do with health somehow, floating, which is what Tom was just talking about. And then Tom, the out-of-body experience, the aura traveling, right? The astral traveling. So I thought that was
Claudia.
really nice, Claudia.
That's amazing, Claudia.
Thank you. Yeah, it just came out my pen. So
Really, really good there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Evan had something to say as well about the algae.
Go ahead, Evan. Oh, I have to unmute or do something, do I? Yes, I do. I have to add him back in.
Yeah, so I was actually seeing in multiple points, I was seeing a kind of energetic layered fungus that was growing towards the light.
Yes.
So your algae comment reminded me of that.
Yeah, and that's good too, because the center of the thing I call the dark matter energy, it gives off something, right? An energy, and it would be drawn to it, almost like a whirlpool. It's not exact, but you get the point, right? But it's really they turn into candy canes. Again, they're obviously not candy canes, but something that looks like those things. And they serve a purpose. And I want to tell you guys what it is when we get the last one, because some people drew images that are related to it. And I'd like to go back to those after we've done the last one.
Sounds good. Yeah. Okay. And then Chris, tell us a little bit about your data.
So that's the first page of my session. And it starts with what's on the right, saying that the geometric shapes here are relevant. So yeah, unfortunately, they're not curved like the canes, but I got the impression that the geometry is important, And I asked why, and that's what's on the left. And so the geometry is important because it's physics, and if it's not properly aligned, it doesn't work. What's the purpose? To reach higher grounds, meaning surpass what is known today, or at least what is publicly known. Yeah.
And that makes sense if, like Jeff was saying, if we're talking about the sugars, we're talking about the amino acids, we're talking about the different constituents of the DNA, that it has to hook perfectly. It has to fit into the receptor, right? And I do think that you did have the hook shape here.
Yeah.
The cane shape.
Yeah.
And then here I see this is the cross-section of the DNA. It fits so well. So tell us about this.
Yeah, so it was weird. I had an impression of like movement, circular movement, perpetual like this, but also the kinesthetic was very weird. I never had that. It was like a aluminium foil ball, when you put it in a bowl. It was a bit like that, and it was very reflective and very luminous, like metal with a lot of light. And at that point, it was so luminous that I thought the background is black. So I thought, is it in space? But then I wrote, no, it's not in space. And so that's how I went a bit on the other side, saying that it was some kind of technology, and there was a lot of reflection, absorption, condensation. And then I had the idea of a laser because it was something with energy focused on a single point, which is how you could define a hologram, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good data.
Yeah, I think that's amazing data. The fact that you're picking up on the light, the reflection, and like you said, the laser, that's how we make holograms. And so I thought that was fantastic. And the shape as well of the cross-section of the DNA, the idea that it's rotating, we'll see that in a lot of people's data, that they're picking up on that rotation.
It's just the public. I mean, when you don't necessarily always have a choice as to how the data presents itself. So this is where you have to look at what Chris wrote and understand, like Sasha was saying and Chris is saying, the laser, you've got luminosity, where you can see that we're talking about a hologram, that Tom's able to see. And so for Chris to be able to kind of maneuver through that, not get bogged down or sidetracked, and still extract relevant pieces of information that correlate to the idea of a hologram or to a luminous kind of object that somebody might be viewing. To me, I'm just saying, like, that is amazing, because it's very difficult as a skill. Sure, there are times that you get exactly what you see, what you get kind of thing, where it's like, I saw a car and it's like target was a car and it's like that car and it's like wonderful, right? But there are other times when you're dealing with something super complex, like a concept of a hologram. It's like, that's very different than a car. Like, how are you going to explain that? So I'm just trying to make a point that this is very difficult, and Chris did a good job, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's what we can see here. There's, and that's what I'm trying to show in these slides. And what I am showing is that idea of not getting caught on the literal interpretation of the visual. So Chris isn't saying, oh, I see that it looks like it's, aluminum foil, and then start filling with data about things that he knows that are made out of aluminum foil, right? He's really just letting the data pass through him and say, okay, but what does it mean? And what purpose does it serve? And what does it do? And how does it work? And so that's what we're seeing here, is unlocking so much more data in everybody's work.
And that's like Joe McGonigal, he's always saying, a good mantra for remote viewers is trust the process. No matter what comes through, it's like, write it down and trust the process, because that's the relationship you want with your subconscious. So good work.
Yeah.
And to Tom's earlier point, because Tom was kind of like, somebody said like they didn't know what they were seeing. It was Cody. He's like, I don't know what all this stuff is, and he's just writing it down, right? And Tom's like, wow, you're able to pull that out. And the point to Tom is that my best work, and I think most people's, is exactly that, is when I don't know what the hell I'm looking at, but I just try to get the information down, because the flip of that is, if you know what it is, like tinfoil, then you're more likely to just keep going down tinfoil. But if you don't know, you're more likely to actually scoop up all these concepts and extra details that are completely relevant, even if you don't understand. So the trap is, if you know what it is, then you get funneled down into something that is possibly finite data, or maybe you're wrong on what you saw, your interpretation, and now you're stuck with data that's not good, right? So that's why we see scenarios where when people don't know what they're actually, it doesn't make any sense to them. That actually tends to be really good data when you actually review it.
Yeah, definitely. And like, here's an example. So Cody, you're seeing this and you're like, oh, I don't know what this is. This circular object, it has a pattern. And you kind of kept seeing it. And what I like is that you're always open to, okay, how has it changed? Let me draw it again. Now what does it look like? So that your subconscious, your consciousness, you can kind of work through some of the expectations and get closer and closer to the real data. So what do you think about that in terms of this data here?
Yeah, well, this was just another way it came through,
Yeah.
but this time it had temperatures with it, so it was warmer on the outside and cool on the top. But yeah, like you were just saying, if I keep getting similar things, I know it's something like that, or it's normally shapes or colours or something like that. But yeah, it's the same thing, and it's through my whole session.
Yes, and for something this complex as a target, you have to keep refining and keep probing. And then Chris, you're also talking here about movement being necessary. So we're seeing that everyone's talking about the rotation, the motion. Did you want to say something about your data here? Oh, did I put you out?
No, I'm here. Yeah, so again, it came out very luminous, and it felt like, the whole thing felt like something linked to energy. So I had in the back of my head like these kind of stuff like Kundalini yoga and Neigong, Taoist cultivation, that kind of stuff, as kind of energy manipulation in some kind of way. So here I wrote that it was something that feels dense and physical, and later on I'll say it's like in between. So maybe we'll see that on another slide. But it's between electricity and electromagnetism, and the movement here, I got the perception that the movement was essential. If there's no movement, there's nothing that happens. And for that energy to materialize, which it didn't make sense when I wrote it, but here it makes sense. There needs to be movement.
Yeah,
so for that hologram to appear, there has to be movement. And from what I've heard you say, Tom, you're saying that it's always in movement, right?
Yeah, actually, can you go back to the other slide? I want to jump in now because I feel like I just want to explain it. I don't want to wait anymore. Right there. Okay. So I'm going to tell you what happens to the candy canes, right? I'm going to tell you what the next stage is that I see typically. Okay, so you've got this picture to the right of the drawing that I've got, the one that's looks like a coffee filter, right? He's got it to the right, the one that right next to the DNA, that one right there. So imagine, right? So imagine the candy canes moving around, just bouncing up and down on that ring, and at some point, the energy from the what I call dark energy or plasma energy is pulled through it. Some of the candy canes are pulled down. One of them are pulled down, one at a time. It's pulled down. And just like the side of a coffee filter or an invisible screen or whatever, it tears it open. And that's what's happening. So I've seen that a couple of people have drawn this, but this one is so specific. It just doesn't have that candy canes. But imagine it pulling it down and being a tear. And as soon as it tears open, that is the next stage. That's what the next stage every time. It pulls it down, the candy cane one at a time, the one will get pulled down. Now, I don't know what the importance of that is, but that's what happens in this liminal space with this dark energy, whatever it is, that's what it does. So my thought is that it's being controlled by, there's another element that's controlling the DNA. If you want to go way out there and say it's non-human intelligence, or you could sit there and say it's not exactly organic, but it's certainly not malevolent. It's just some kind of process that's in the universe that we just haven't seen yet. Just like 200 years ago, we couldn't see through the electron microscope or the microscope with Leeuwenhoek. I think this is doing that. Again, whether something else is controlling it or not is a question we won't know. Actually, maybe for a year. I don't know. That's a joke.
Well, that explains what all the destructive stuff I was getting in my session and stuff breaking in half, and that is.
Yeah, exactly. When you said that, you said carved. I mean, see, I can't tell if it's like a knife cutting through or a magnet being pulled through, but the effect is the same.
Yes. Oh, okay. So we're going to see all of these, the broken DNAs in a little bit. But even here, so this is data about changing the DNA. And is it for good or is it not? Some people had, were altering history. That's Dixon's data. And then Chris, you also have this idea of something's happening and it's being remembered in history. Claudia, though, you're talking about parasitic. So, and someone else had mentioned earlier that they had parasite in their data as well.
So let me, I got to jump in. I feel a compulsion to jump in. So from my perspective, again, I've thought about this since I've seen it for 13 years. Yeah. This is an environmental response. This is maybe a mutation to be able to see this, right? Because the environment we're living in, my body environment, forever chemicals, vaccines, whatever you want to call it, polar shifts, what's chemtrails, anything in our environment. You can go conspiracy theorists, or you could sit there and think, well, obviously the things are changing. Something is happening to us, right? And it's changing for us to survive. I think I've developed Upsight Vision, so we're going to need it for whatever reason. Okay, that's over here. All the other things you're talking about, there may be an opportunity for some malevolent NHI to add these other elements. At the same time, they're, from my perspective, a positive NHI that could also guide us. All I know is that the feeling of it is more positive. That's why I jumped in there. For me, in this space, it does not feel parasitic at all. It feels actually good, and it's gotten me healthier, at least my ability around this anyway. I just need to say that.
Yeah, so different people were picking up on different data. So John, do you want to give us, because there was something ominous, I think, in the feel of your data about the changes.
Yeah, I had just some kind of strange little perceptions here and there that kind of seemed kind of ominous. At the same time, when you start talking about the candy cane dropping and I guess ripping, that kind of like,
you have it there,
was interesting because I had that feel, my foot feels caught or pulled down. That could be like the bottom of the candy cane pulling, but I also had crack rupture up there, and I had something breaks, and I think I had something else. There was a bridge that breaks earlier in my data, so that makes a little more sense for me. As far as the ominous, I had some things scattered around there that kind of popped in that like the subjects maybe seem excited, maybe chaotic, kind of like people that like things were like getting in a frenzy for something to happen. I didn't know what it was, but it felt like something like an execution. People are jumping around, getting all excited for something that was about to happen. But I wasn't sure about what that would be. But then, like I said, I felt like I got in trouble for breaking the law. I didn't really know what to make of that stuff.
Well, so I wonder if it's, the DNA is the law, right?
Could be.
So if something's making changes to the DNA, or if the DNA is being changed, whether it's by natural forces or by interference, you're breaking the law, you're changing the order. And then even the idea of being excited for an execution, Tom is talking about the cane. So if these are the sugar, hooking the amino acids, and if those are being torn out, opened up, changed or destroyed, then I think that fits. I think the data fits really well.
I do too.
Yeah.
The other point, which is minor, but John's Underworld and Dixon, I had made the point of the words he used kind of made me think of Upsight Vision, the word.
Yes.
But the concept, Dixon said it for that component was Stranger Things, the upside down, right? Both of those are indicative of, to me, of a dimensional aspect. So I'm just saying two people are kind of picking up on the idea of another dimension.
Definitely. Yes.
And I was also getting on that point too, like the dematerialization. And I had a sketch earlier. I had a couple of perceptions of like a subject or something dematerializing or materializing in and out of my space or my dimension.
Interesting.
And you have the idea of a nursery, and you have the idea of farm tools, energetic material in relation to a farm or a nursery of some kind where we're growing things and maybe harvesting them. And so I think that then playfully, I just added the loosh harvesting. Because I think that there was some data that pointed to that concept, and that I just thought that was amusing. I'm not saying I believe it happens. I'm not saying I don't believe it happens. I'm saying it's a concept in the community of woo-woo remote viewing. And so I thought it was interesting to see that come up, and just there be some support in the data for that.
Sure.
I definitely got parasites. Yeah, that would make sense.
Yes.
Yeah, that the grabbing mechanism, that I wasn't sure if that was. It sure did feel like it was some conceptually representing that, but then once I figured out about the candy canes, I thought maybe that was just a bunch of candy canes, but I didn't know. The comment about reminds me of like finding a variable resource like mining for minerals. That was a very strong kind of unique hit out of the side. So I feel like there's definitely something to that. But yeah, I don't know if that's like a nefarious thing or what, but yeah, there was something there.
Well, so
Yeah,
I want to say something on that too, because there's something else that happens, which is, so remember, and look at my hands here. You've got the ring, right? And the candy canes hang on it and you pull it down to cut, right? But there's also another element. I don't know what the purpose of this is. Sometimes the candy canes go sideways, right? And they're pulled like that. They're pulled. So it's, in other words, it's like something is spinning around, pulling them out, or grabbing and pulling out. Nothing happens when that happens. So I don't know what the purpose of it is, but sometimes like there's another energy that pulls on it for one reason or another, but then it lets go, right? And it's not all there, but because when I started seeing it, I'm like, what's the point of that? It just happens. The relevant, or the part that produces a result is when the candy cane comes in and cuts the, again, whatever this is, whatever this space is. And another thing too, because it's, let me say this too. I have a PDF. It's a free PDF on my website, the 8 stages of Upsight Vision. Okay. You guys can download it if you want, no problem. One of the things I talk about, there's 2 things. There's a hidden biosphere that's here with us that we just can't see, kind of like microbiology. I feel like this is that space. The other place that I think we access is more like the Akashic record and extra dimensional. So I think, I don't know where one starts and the other begins, but I know I go between one and the other. And the longer I do this, I'm like, okay, this is hidden biosphere. This is extra dimensional. I can't prove that. I can only experience it. Maybe someday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Tom, just a quick question, because I'm just curious. Do you see the holograms constantly, or do you tune in, tune out as you desire?
Attention. It's literally shifting my attention. Shift my attention. Okay. It's there. Yeah. It could be what we're talking about, or it could be something else picking it up. You know, it could be something floating by, for lack of another, like tuning in a receiver for radio station.
That makes sense.
It does not interfere with my day, importantly.
Yeah. I was going to say, the mentioning of basically the candy canes being pulled down and having some rupture or something does remind me of some data I did obtain in like the energetic overview of the target. For me, like for this picture, essentially was like an overview of like solar system, these like concentric rings with like planets in them, and these like streams of like meteor, asteroids, and so on. And then there'd be collisions directed by force fields, where I guess that was altering the planetary structures and stability, inducing planets, quote unquote, to sink further in, causing environmental shifts and releases of energy from those planets and their tectonic plates there. And then that was a directed process, or if it was undirected. What I got back was a higher level direction, but less preoccupation with the details, except for further downstream connect. So maybe they don't care particularly about this or that, say candy cane or whatever, but like something about the energetic release appears to be doing something there. And inquiring about the purpose of that energetic interaction, instead I got the image of a well drawing water up basically through like a metal chain. There's like a drive shaft connecting stored potential energy via this chain, which I thought also could be related to DNA storage in the fluid container. Collected for the image I got was just like salt water, also irrigation, and the word nuclear science as well, which to me it relates to energy generation, but also just the idea of the science of what's going on inside a nucleus as well of a cell, where the DNA is.
Yeah, everything there. It's funny too. You say up, you know what I mean? I always think of it as down, but whatever, right? It's so small, turn it on. That's wild though, because I do see it as down, but it's up too. It depends where your perspective is. But everything else there you said. And here's the other thing too, and this doesn't map exactly, but it's micro to the macro, So when you talk about planets, this is certainly at scale, and it changes at scale, but it's there. It's still relevant. These words are spot on.
Yeah, so this is Claudia's data about the change. Do you want to say something about this? Because Claudia, I think some of the things that you have here that really interested me. One is that you're picking up on the DNA strands. And two, you're picking up on this idea of being contained, which we talked about earlier, but also held back or imprisoned and trying to come out. We're going to see that later in the slides, but if you wanted to talk a little bit about how this felt when it came through.
I think you have to bring it back.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Oh, we can. Oh, there's. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I'm in the show. I'm in the show. First, I thought these things were bamboo, but then it changed into DNA, and I really saw a shift. I really had a very transition feeling. How do I come from here to there? And yeah, on multiple levels then, in the universe or dimension or shape shifting. It was a very strange feeling, I remember. Yeah. It was a bit whirling, floating. Yeah.
Yeah, really, really good data. That idea of transformation.
Yeah.
And the insect, nearly everyone had some reference to insects. And then Jeff, who I think I have to add back in, let me bring Jeff back in. Say, I'm going to push you down for a second. So I can add Jeff. So here we're seeing Claudia talk about transformation, DNA transformation, unlocking, wanting to get out and do more. And then you have the Superman levitation, which I thought was really cute. Your little sketch, but also that idea of the transcendence, right? That and it ties into what John Dixon was saying about unlocking and maybe being able to do more. What do you think in terms of your data here or the sensation that came through?
I have a little bit more specific interpretation of this. I think this relates directly to Tom. And his change in being able, so levitation and upsight being an upward sight. So I wonder if that's what happened to Tom.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah, because definitely not Superman, but maybe looking up. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting. And the whole idea about the Lucian, the parasite too, I've been thinking about that since it's been discussed. Even though that's not here now, if I go back, that was definitely the feeling I had when I was going through my really bad year, right? I felt like I was being mocked by these higher beings and my energy was being drained. I mean, I was so unwell and it felt like that. So maybe there was a parasitic element at some point. So I think I just wanted to say that for the people that, because it was there, but it's not now, at least for me.
And to be fair, I think when you invite remote viewers to remote view a target for you that is in some way personal to you, if you're asking someone to remote view what you see or what you experience, you're to some extent opening the door a little bit for them to come in and describe your life, experiences that you've had that are maybe tangentially connected but are very vivid. And so I think we are seeing that in the data. And I tried to filter out as much of that as possible because we're not here to necessarily expose your life or.
No, I understand that, but I just think it's like, hold on a minute, and those were, important times. So they were energy around that, emotional. So to somebody pick that up would make sense.
Yes. Yeah,
Did Sasha, you didn't dictate the time, right, component on the target? Because that is one of the things that remote viewers, if you don't try to isolate the time frame for a particular target, it's more likely that they could skim across the spectrum of time. So I'm just saying Tom's comment is very relevant to the potential correlation to that information, because some of these remote viewers may be picking up in the present, some really far in the past, that kind of thing. And so you get kind of variation with some of this.
I agree. Yeah. And so then here we have more from Claudia about the DNA changes and maybe experimenting upon. That's going to come up a little bit more later. And Michael, I think you were just talking about this, but if you want to say a little bit more about it with this data.
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of this information, well, the image on the left, for example, came from just the general target overview. And looking at this in retrospect, yeah, I did this target, and then a couple of weeks later, I actually went to a planetarium, which I've been for my childhood. It has this kind of like this machine with these two giant eyes on it, similar to what's there, where they have these basically have this projection onto this sphere of images. And so essentially what I also would pick up with this is just the idea of being in this giant deep brown passage. It almost felt like a microscopic syringe, also perhaps with some like subtle elements related to the DNA itself. So for me, I think I'm looking at just see yourself like experiencing this like projection here that's going on of this microscopic environment there. And what also came up in association with some of the data basically related to just some more visceral experiences I had while doing the data. That will come a bit later, but basically the idea of this World of Goo puzzle game where these tiny critters you could like join together and they make actual little structures that you could like hang on to things and so on. And I think that was maybe where some of the candy cane data itself came in. Yeah. And yeah, that was related to the hydrostatic interactions, volatile organics, mass production. Also this idea of like salty homemade Play-Doh as well. Like, so this is kind of something I had when I was growing up quite a bit. So maybe you think rightly of rudimentary tinkering with complex systems and so on, but you're just kind of building these very simple things to kind of access and play around with them a little bit. And I also, picked up on kind of these more grand schemes like epochal shifts, hubris, like natural snapbacks and so on. I'm not quite sure how to make that kind of really relate with the target itself, but some of the data as well included saying in structures allows the conveyance of like these shifts. Essentially, I'm talking about the magnetism and between the rings itself, establish an equilibrium and balance for mitigating catastrophic failures. What are the consequences of a failure? Image of dam bursting, loss of lives, disarray of the landscape, and also loss of massive potential energy, which was interesting just looking at the context of the previous share mention, where there's kind of these like minute kind of harvestings of energy for purposes here and there. And it seems like something could go really south or sideways in this process. Like maybe there's some like very large impact on the whole organism, for example. Maybe that's like where like spontaneous combustion comes from or something. I don't really know, but yeah.
Well, what I thought was interesting is you're starting to introduce this idea of people tinkering with things that maybe they're not quite understanding. And we saw in Claudia's data that idea of experimenting on the DNA, maybe, right? And that there's the gatekeepers, and then there are those who are trying to experiment. And then you start introducing this idea of people that are tinkering with things that they don't understand, and that may be having disastrous consequences. And we're going to see that come through in other people's data. So John Dixon, do you want to talk a little bit about your data here? And it's kind of connecting on some level, but you're talking about the rotation as well that we had talked about earlier with some of Cody's data.
Yeah, I was going to actually mention that. And then there was, who else was it? Was it just Cody? I thought there was someone else that talked about, I think it might have been Michael, about talking about there's the rotations. And then it was like, I kept seeing like, I don't know how to describe because I don't really see images. I more or less just hear them or audio. I don't know. But anyways, it was like there was this perfect system conceptually that people were adding things to it, and it was causing it to get off balance. Like if somebody was like twirling a basketball or something on their finger, and somebody was doing something to the surrounding air or space to cause that equilibrium to be thrown off. So it was like almost like a constant wobble, and it was interrupting that rotation. If that, I mean, that's the best I can do as a remote viewer to describe the data that was coming through.
And you were using the term adjuvant. So an adjuvant is often what they put in vaccines.
Right.
So then, right, it's this idea of like something's going in and it's tilting the equilibrium and things are not working as well. And I think that fits into Michael's data about people tinkering with something that they don't understand well enough to be tinkering with, and then the consequences are disastrous. And that ties in with Claudia's data about like somebody's experimenting on the DNA, And so I think we're kind of starting to see this thread that's starting to form as we move through the data.
Right, and there's like an ad, and you can also they're used for like chemical drift. Like if someone's spraying chemical, they add that usually to prevent the wind from drifting it to an untargeted location as well. So it's like chemicals, vaccines, to kind of make it thicker or heavier almost.
So to keep the chemical you're spraying on the one field so it doesn't contaminate the neighboring field.
Yeah,
that's so interesting in terms of what we were talking about earlier with the other John's data about the nursery and the farm tools and like right the loosh harvesting, the earth is a farm.
yeah, right.
And then Chris, I think it's your data here is relevant here about this information being there, but it's not fully decoded. And I think I have to add you in, Chris. So Claudia, I'm going to move you down. Where is Chris? There you are. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, so this is a timeline. So what I got here, what I perceived here was that at the present, the information is there, but not fully decoded, as if the data is around here and you're half decoding it. In the past, I had this perception that I put comet of light coming down, something very illuminating and very esoteric. And in the future, it will fit together better. And here I'm using geometry here, and it makes more sense and logical. So maybe we're seeing something that is going to develop in the future as a way of perceiving things.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't write this anywhere in my session, but I don't know. I get the feeling that these things happening on the DNA string could be what is filtering out our perceptions, in the sense like having the human experience and not seeing what we really are.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's that depth that I think you're right about that. And I think it's, when we look at this, we're talking about Upsight Vision and the DNA differences maybe that allow people to do that. But we're also talking about what we do as remote viewers, what we learn to do just by training. And so this idea that in the past, there's the bright light, right? That illumination, that enlightenment, the Tom seeing the hologram. And then in the moment the information is there, we're trying to put these pieces together. We're trying to figure out what's happening to the DNA, what's happening to our psychic abilities, what's happening with Upsight Vision and remote viewing. And that as we move forward, all these pieces are going to kind of come together, make more sense, and maybe help us be more aware, like you said, of the truth of this reality. What's really going on? Where are we really? So I think it's a very positive message that you have here, that it is going to come together and make sense. And your comment here, it was interesting to me because Michael drew very much the same thing. And John, you also have the energetic blast. And so, Chris, I think that there's other supporting data for that. Do you want to say a little bit about the descriptions that you have here for it in terms of the truth?
Yeah. So yeah, about the truth, I'm not sure, but I had this perception of a comet, but then I thought, is it a comet? And then I wrote that it's actually not a comet. It's more an image, as if all sources converge into a single point of data. So that ties a bit back to the laser thingy and the hologram, because from my understanding, a hologram is multiple lights coming into the same point. And so it is a truth and not especially the truth. So maybe it shows what something wants to be shown. Maybe that's an interpretation that I could have of it. And here I'm also coming back to the energy aspect of it, that it's mainly intangible energy in motion, and that the kind of energy is like plasma-like, not easily perceived, and it's kind of in a super state between dimensions. So maybe that's something you can tap in, and that's why you're seeing those energy, as I call it. So I had this perception that it's here and there at the same time. So in two different dimensions I wrote.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that what you just said about the truth versus a truth, and how with remote viewing, and I think maybe with Upsight Vision, you're seeing data, but it's interpreted through your personality, your memories, your experience, your knowledge base. And so you're seeing a truth, but then you still have to figure out, okay, but what does this translate to, right? Which is what we're doing here today. We're trying to look at the data and figure out what, with analysis, what is the underlying truth. And so I just thought that was really profound.
Yeah,
And then, yeah,
I
go
would
ahead.
agree with that. No, from my perspective with the Upsight Vision, I would agree with that. A lot of that makes sense too. There's a theory of consciousness by Hameroff and Penrose, the orchestrate theory of HR, which is there's microtubules in the brain, and they do in fact emit a little light. So the idea of creating a hologram around the brain is not, it's possible, right? So, and the way that I couldn't do this before, that I could do it now. So my perception has changed and the things I see have changed. The question is it different for me with Upsight Vision? If somebody was sitting right next to me with Upsight Vision, would we see the exact same thing? Could we communicate, right? Could I see whatever he's projecting, and then I change it with my holographic projection? So that's what's interesting to me, that, you know, the next step of where this is. But the fact that there's actually an ability in microtubules to emit a light in the brain was news to me until I didn't know that was a thing until last year.
That's interesting. And that makes sense then of the data. Everyone is kind of talking about the bright lights and the laser like light, and yeah, and the organization of the light.
And Persinger with the white light. Sasha, remind me again, I think when people, the studies, Persinger had some scientific studies with white light. I believe when people thought about the white light, they actually were able to scientifically measure its presence in the environment around the brain, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's for Tom's benefit, because
interesting.
that's a link to the concept that you can actually self-generate light in a way that's measurable through intention, right? And through focus and through the right kind of, focal point. So that might relate to your ability to produce a hologram that you can see, meaning that maybe that's a link towards that path. Like further development of that capability, as an example, might yield something more complex and profound like you're experiencing.
Yeah, and it's not even really, if you think about it, it's not really that much of a stretch, right? We know we can make sound with our voice. We know we can squeeze our muscles. So the fact that that might be possible, it's just new, or it's old and we forgot about it. So,
and it's interesting because Persinger showed that you can detect photons when people are visualizing white light, not in like a sterile, think about the white light of the doctor's office, but more as like, think about the white light that you associate with divine source, things like that. And then in our pineal gland, we have photon sensitive cells, right? We have cells that fire when there are photons there. So we have cells in our pineal gland that can respond to the photons that we actually generate when we connect to what we think of as source, or that white light, or the light of knowledge, or the light of enlightenment or illumination. So I think that there's something there with how this ties into your experience of Upsight Vision and the holograms. Yeah. Evan, I'm going to put you in so you can add your comment here, because I think it's relevant, if I can get my mouse to behave, about the white light.
Right, yeah. I believe that eyes actually emit photons. So the human eye emits as well as perceives photons. So we do produce light.
Yeah, and you can feel it, right? I can feel light coming in and going out. I know we could all probably do that if you just quieted yourself. But I just paid attention to it more. But I bet you all of you would take the time, if you wanted to, you could feel the same thing going in and out, like you're pushing something out, just like your vocal cords are pushing something out.
And even, I remember when I first started remote viewing, rather than, looking in other ways, I would focus on, because when I first started, I'm trained on like, okay, think about where your pineal gland is. Think about the photon detector cells that are in it, and then try to use those to like interpret the information. So basically try to see with those eyes that are not on your face. And it works. You get really interesting results that way. So something for people who are interested in remote viewing to maybe test out. And then I wanted to talk about this. This one sketch has so much data. There's so much meaning here, so much meaning embedded and encoded. And we'll just touch upon some of it today. But John Dixon, so I've made all these notes on your thing. You know, I think you have the cross here. We're talking about the duality of matter versus spirit, the DNA versus the soul that maybe embodies the person. You were talking about the wandering souls that come in. Do you want to talk a little bit about this data here?
Yeah, it was just I was drawn to I would say, well, not necessarily ancient maybe, but an older time, kind of like I think somebody was perceiving that it was like in the 1800s earlier. I think it was Jeff or John might have mentioned something about it, but it was just it seemed rather esoteric, and that I was drawn to this location just because it was trying to describe like the birth or emergence of something, and something that is being kept. And it might have, you know, now that we're talking about everything else, it might have just been a focus on a certain time period or event that might have changed the way DNA is, I don't know, contained, maybe. I'm not sure.
The just so I don't forget, the other thing that I see in here immediately, which may or may not be true, it's just my immediate sort of pattern matching, is Claudia, and I forget who the other person had container. Claudia's container, which Tom had said, hey, this is important, algae, container, water. You've got that shape, the exact shape in the doorway there. To me, that looks almost identical to what she drew, just the container shape, right? But you also have outside of it, you have the concept of biological, you have flower, like right next to it, right? It's not inside it, I think it's outside it, but it's adjacent. So it's like, to me, I see a link between what Claudia did and what you're doing here as being the same piece of data. It's just that piece. I'm not saying that whole piece relates to this whole thing here, but it could. But I think it's a portion of correlation between some of the other data from the viewers.
And let's be, I have, my memoir is called Jesus Goes to Hollywood, a memoir of madness. So the fact that there's the Jesus and then the cross, you know, if you look at the cover of my book, it's got a cross on it, and obviously Jesus Goes to Hollywood. So maybe that's what you're picking up. You're talking about the whole timeline and stuff. So it could be an element of that too.
Yeah, it's true. And I know that I've talked to David personally about things like he's tasked me with a couple of targets. I said, hey, just to forewarn you, like sometimes I have a telepathic leak when I remote view, and who knows, that might have definitely bled through it there.
Certainly.
Yeah, definitely. And even just, I think, you know, I saw this with the cross on it, the reference to the Bible, biblical altering cycles, this idea of the story, whether people believe in it or not doesn't really matter, but the story is right that the manger, Jesus is born in the manger, and Jesus is the combination of the human animal with the divine soul of God, right? And so I think that again is that theme that we're seeing repeated of the light, the illumination being brought into the inanimate DNA molecules, right? The sugars, the structures. And so I thought that was really profound here. A lot of really good data here. And the cross, so the other John, so the two Johns had really similar data here, the cross and the light in a cave-like structure. Do you want to say something about that other John?
I don't have a lot to say about it. I definitely, that cross symbol, that perception was, I don't know what else to say about it, but the cave thing was kind of weird. And I think I got actually a couple things with that cave, but yeah, that I just had this kind of visual of but it was kind of conceptual visual of this very energetic kind of star, weird shaped thing that was emitting energy, and around it was just kind of this dark kind of cave kind of place. I don't really know much more to say than that.
Yeah. it's an interesting connection, I think, to the other data,
Yeah.
and the cross is coming through with importance, right? It's not just a little thing on the side of your sketch. You both kind of paid attention to it. And then there was more analysis for the audience. There was a deeper analysis done, and I sent that out to the viewers that decoded some of this as well. But we'll leave it at this for now. And then, Tom, I wanted you to maybe tell us about this sketch in particular, about rainbows and the rotation that you see, because I also saw a correlation between this and Dixon's data, the rotation. And Cody, everybody was mentioning in their session rotation, but the idea of rotating in opposite directions came through in some people's data. And I saw this when I was looking through your Twitter feed and your website.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
thought you could tell us
That
about it.
so this is a perfect example of about Upsight Vision is from a different perspective, just seeing something outside of what doesn't even exist, or supposedly. When you see a double rainbow, one rainbow is on top of the other, the illusion, right? And one of them with the colors going one way, and then the bigger one is softer and colors going the other way. When I see with Upsight Vision, there's two funnels. One comes towards us until it gets too small, like let's call it the Planck scale, and then it snaps back and it rolls out, whatever energy this is, right? I don't want to say it's electromagnetic. However, it is tied to the electromagnetic energy, and it rolls out, and the other one goes back. So it's almost like winding a rubber band so tight, when it can't get any tight, it unravels and goes in the other direction. So this is supposed to be two funnels, one coming towards us and the other one going away. And the Alexander's band, where it gets dark is where they cross over. That's how I see that.
Yeah. So just thought it was an interesting link. And then Jeff as well, he had both the cross and the rotation in that little sketch. So
and even though those things are not the same scale, they're still related. We can't begin to get into that now, but they're 100% related.
I agree. Yeah, I see that too. And so then here again, just the idea of rotation coming through in people's data. So Michael had talked about this sketch here with the sun and the planets and the stars, that idea of natural motion, natural systems, the macro, the micro, right? And he's also talking about rotation of the, I guess these are like the DNA, right? The halves. And Cody sees it as turning, and it having to do with a key, right? You turn the key in the lock. I thought that was really great data for this, actually. So really interesting here. And then Chris, you kind of drew very much the same thing here, and you're talking about it as a puzzle piece, whereas Cody was talking about it more as a key. So if anybody wanted to add anything about their data here. Because again, Chris, you have that it's going around in both directions, and that's something that Tom is just mentioning, that's some kind of a key point there. Oh, do I have you added, Chris? I do not. Sorry. Oops.
Again.
Yeah. So I was just saying, since the beginning with the rotations, I had that perception that it was rotating, but in the two opposite ways. And to bounce back on what Cody had, here I put it as a puzzle, but that can be deciphered, but only by the people who put the work in. So something is hidden behind the veil. And here, I guess you need something special to be able to decipher it and see it.
Yeah. Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then
Cody also had his hot, cold ring colors, circles. That makes me think of it's not here, it's way further in the presentation, but it makes me think of it might be related to the rainbows as well. Just because he drew two different colors and he had circles, and I'm like, it might be the same thing there too.
And the temperature differences. Yeah, definitely. Good catch. And then, so here, John, you're talking about the light, the multiple pathways of light. So again, I think this is tying into the hologram idea and the idea, again, of replication or cloning. And we saw that in other people's data as well earlier on. And then John Dixon, you're talking here a laser, energy with precision. So again, really great data here. Did you want to say anything about this?
Oh no, it's okay. We can keep proceeding. It's all right.
Okay. But I do think, yeah, really, really good. And again, things that we've already talked about, right? That idea of like spraying the field. And Tom, you talk about this field of interference, right? Or this field where the visuals are taking place. And so I think there's a lot of connections here. This, John, you did such a great job of sketching Tom looking at the holograms, and you even have it as red laser light. And so I just thought that was amazing. I really wanted Tom to see that as well. So Tom, were you surprised when you saw this?
Yeah, that's, I mean, it feels like that's what's happening, right? I feel like my eyes are, I feel like this is coming at me, if that makes sense. This is like a shower head coming at me.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it feels like.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's it. That's what it feels like. So when you see this, it's like, okay, you know, it's so specific. You know, it's so specific. Even though, so watch my hands. Even though they go from left to right, or right to left, whatever, even back and forth or around, it still feels like this is all of it's coming at me, and then it's going this way too. So I use the word shower head, but that's wrong because it's so powerful. It's just like a quiet, soft shower head of plasma field, whatever field this is.
Yeah, that's it was kind of weird. It was almost like the light was like, I don't know if, I mean, light is light considered 3D? I'm not really sure, but
say that again. Is it light?
Well, yeah, so it was like light was how I was wanting to describe it, but at the same time there was like the little bubbles that I put in there, it was like they were like air pockets or something that was I don't know, that was because it felt almost like there was a form of water or of some sort, and there was invisible air pockets.
Yeah, it's not. I don't want to say it's light. It could be a byproduct of light. Something, you know. It could be piggyback on pieces. I don't know. Again,
yeah.
so new science on this. But that's good. Even though that's still good.
Yeah, and then here again, just looking at your website, your information, Tom, and John, I think really picked up on your experience of the holograms, right? So here, John Dixon, you're seeing the light and the extremely tight, the short wavelengths. I thought that was just interesting. Again, especially for interacting with DNA. Really good data here. And then even here, you have this your art is math, Tom?
Yeah. I'm Banksy. My art is math. That was a blog post I wrote.
And I think that really fit with
I'll say. Yeah.
Data. And then Evan, also you were picking up on this. Did you want to say a little bit about how it felt for when this data came through? I'll make sure that you're in. Yeah, you are.
Yeah, it was like the sense of I don't know, like a tempest in a teapot, something. I thought this was the DNA.
It is. Wait, I'm going to jump in. It is. Look at that.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying about the filter. So it's both. That's why I say they're related.
Yeah.
Right. And I got the sense of that lenticular drawing, some kind of like energy being projected that had a lens-like effect in layers. I didn't know what I was drawing.
This is great. This is great. I mean, this is spot on for both. What's interesting is because it is for both, right? The assignment was the DNA, but this fits both, and I know it fits both. I just don't talk about it. But obviously here it's relevant for this conversation. Related.
Yeah, and also because I tasked you with tell me what he's seeing. And so right. I think that this is what he's seeing. So really great data there, Evan. You did a really good job.
Yeah, really that makes sense because like when I was drawing the cobalt rings, I was struggling to kind of make sense of like sort of the conical shape to it because it just seemed like it wasn't like straight up and down like a tube like DNA. It was like a light cone basically. But what you described, Tom, makes a lot more sense.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's wild how perfect that is.
Especially because this was all blind, so it's blind data.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And then here, Michael, you were describing it as.
Yeah, this is during like the target overview when I was working the the man at the microscopic scale with the projector, I kind of got the experience of when I was probing it, I could lift my pen off the page and almost felt like there was like sort of a viscous substance there with like weight to it. I could almost like probe in specific areas, and then it started to almost feel like an actual like 3D ideogram of some kind. So maybe not like a sensible shape that like was resolved into something I could like immediately make sense of, but like some definitely 3D that was there that like had its own kind of reality to it, and kind of where information was being like stored and kind of like wound up, kind of like I guess DNA itself and like histones or something.
Yes.
Yeah, and again, if we had some of you may be scientists, but if you were asking somebody to study lights, they'd say this is nonsense, right? This is not what and it's to their point, it doesn't look like this, right? When you look, there's no picture of a double rainbow that looks like this. It doesn't exist. So the question is, what am I seeing that interacts with it to make it look like this? That's the question that I'm still curious about.
Well, and the interesting thing is that when you go high up, if you're on a plane and you see a rainbow, you do see it as a ring rather than an arc, right? So you're seeing maybe what's independently of the ground-based perspective, I guess, right?
Yeah, but they're still next to each other. They're not.
Yes. Yeah.
I've seen like rainbows where there's like a much fainter rainbow further out.
Yeah.
You've seen like even land rainbows that kind of like that. And I think maybe if you are up in space, there's no like horizon blocking the view. Like, to me, it's plausible, definitely, like to have the double rainbow phenomenon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then here, so we've seen sketches of things that could be interpreted as UFOs, but I'm interpreting them as the cross section of the DNA because I think it fits the data better. But I wanted you to talk about it in the
no. So think about this now. And again, I'm thinking of, I don't know that all these pictures are going to come up and people are picking up me, but these hats look like the saucers in this image, which has been around forever, right? Well, not forever, a couple of years. But when we were talking about it earlier, I thought these hats were just upside down versions of the a coffee filter when the DNA gets pulled. But when I look at it like this, it's like, wow, somebody picked this up. I mean, it really does, and it's the second time. Jeff did it too, right? With the UFOs.
Yes.
That's pretty wild. This is like I don't know. It's so specific. There you go. It's so specific.
And Xavier as well, right? Xavier saw the circles as
right. Exactly. And I didn't think about it like that at all until now.
Yeah. And so I just wanted to put out there that you have a pattern. Yeah, go ahead, Xavier.
Just I have a question, Matt. When it comes to this energy, something.
Your audio isn't. It's cutting
out.
Yeah,
okay.
Your audio is cutting out.
Hear me now?
Try again.
Okay.
Xavier's a bot. He doesn't exist.
He's
glitching the matrix.
Yeah, your audio. There's a delay in your visual. Try again. Say something.
No.
I will. Right now.
No, you're cutting out. Try dropping out and come back in and check your settings maybe when you come back in, and when you rejoin, well, I'll give you the opportunity to try again to say it. Yeah, because we're getting maybe 5% of what you're saying. But yeah, I do think it's interesting, right? So I always want us to present that as the analyst, I can interpret the data in various ways, and there's often going to be support for different interpretations because remote viewing is so complex and the data is there's so much meaning embedded in it. And it's a wonderful thing. And I think the data stream takes every opportunity to push as much meaning into this reality as possible, and to help us get as much information out there as possible. But so it does mean that for something like this, you can interpret it slightly differently. But what I try to do is look at the context of all the data So I don't just want to look at one sketch and say, this looks like a UFO, therefore this is about aliens, and it's telling me that there are aliens and they're interfering with their DNA. I don't feel that the data in general supports that. And so I think that's the important thing, is to look at someone's session and say, okay, but what is the data stream saying throughout your data? What is the meaning that it's trying to communicate? Because in just one sketch, we have bias, right? And we have our own idiosyncrasies. And so, but at the same time, I don't want to ignore patterns of data that are maybe valid, right? And so that's why I put this here and said, some of this looks like UFOs, but there's not enough to support that yet in the data.
And the I will say this: the grays show up a lot. I don't know if you told the grays show up in that it's the holograms of the grays. I say a lot. It's happened less and less because I'm actually working with humans. Actually, I just had this insight. So they do show up, and I'm curious why they're there. In the very beginning, they would. They were like a nuisance, like a mosquito when I was thinking about math. They were literally there whenever I was trying to do a complex problem. They would be there to annoy me. And they were almost, I could speculate all day long. So that's number one. Number two, the whole idea, I think somebody said, maybe it was Evan that said about the telepathy and about leaking in. When I work with people now, I dial in their field and we have, and I read their biofield. If I have this ability to amplify, if my biofield or plasma field or whatever it is just amplified naturally more than the regular person, and you guys, because of what you do, pick up stuff because of the training you have, it would make sense that more than the thing we just try to do would come in. And this is a clear reflection from my perspective. After doing this for a couple of hours, this is a clear perspective of that. And it's again, I'm in kind of awe. It's wild.
Tom, this may not relate to you, but I just feel like I should throw it out there in case the information has some value. My experiences directly with, I don't know how much I want to say about some of the stuff that I do, but when you start pushing levels that interact with the matrix, that disrupt it or alter it or bend it, or you're kind of like starting to break rules a little bit about what a human should and shouldn't do. A very common pattern that I see is that the matrix will react to that. There are ways around it, and it's a whole long discussion, but essentially, initially what happens is it reacts to you. And when it reacts to you, it will do, again, we're talking about the matrix and the idea of being in a simulation. And if that's the case, it can bring any tool at its disposal to bear against you. This could be nature, other people, literally anything. So when you say in the beginning, I was doing this, the aliens showed up, and then they would always, like mosquitoes, they would basically be disruptive, blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying I've seen a similar pattern unrelated to aliens, but it's the matrix basically reacting to you, trying to shut down what you're doing, because it's like, you're supposed to be just a normal human. You're not really supposed to be like looking behind the curtain. So I'm going to kind of slap you around a little bit and try to derail you and get you sidetracked, and hopefully you'll kind of forget about this, not do this again, that kind of thing. So I'm just throwing that out there for you as a piece of information that may or may not be useful.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Thank you for that.
And I want to address something from the chat. Hello, chat. So we do have live viewers on YouTube, and Aristam Shah says, when you RV a target, are you getting the reality as it actually exists or as it appears to you? And the answer is as it appears to you. So the data stream encodes the data for its own purposes, in its own language, in its own way. And then we are essentially sneaking in and tapping into that encoded data. And it gets translated for us, and it gets translated through us. And so the data stream will try to figure out, okay, here's a complex idea that I'm trying to communicate through you. And you have no reference frame for this. You've never seen this before. You've never experienced anything like it. So what can I give you that your brain, your mind, your consciousness will respond to? And then your mind has to map that onto something. So your mind might say, well, a red bicycle kind of seems similar to what you're trying to tell me, right? That there's a translation mechanism. So maybe it's a vehicle, maybe it has wheels, maybe it's something that children use. And so then you start seeing a red bicycle and it reminds you of the red bicycle you rode as a child. It doesn't mean that the data is a red bicycle. It means that that's the closest thing in your experience that maps onto the actual data. And sometimes it's not the closest thing, but it's just the translation mechanism, I think, is not designed for humans either. So we're kind of hijacking a system that wasn't necessarily specifically designed for us. So sometimes you'll say, well, you know, the target is a red motorcycle. Why did the data stream show me my cherry red bicycle from when I was young? Why did it not just show me the red motorcycle? Like, you showed me a red bike. Why not show me the correct one? And again, it's because there's that translation process, and it's giving you like a resonance or an echo of the data. And then you're picking up on that echo, that resonance, that frequency, and then translating it into visuals, into concepts, into audio, into an experience of data that your consciousness, your conscious mind, your conscious awareness can understand, make sense of, and also communicate, right? You're drawing it, you're writing it down. And so that's why you get, if you have different remote viewers remote viewing the same thing we can see here today, some things they're describing very differently. It comes through as something that looks more like a parasol to someone, a Mexican hat to someone else it's coming through as a UFO. It's a cross section of DNA. But then we've seen other sketches where everyone is drawing the exact same thing at the same angle, the same lines. And so there are some things that are patterns that are so deeply embedded, I think, in our reality that our minds use, that those kind of come through. What is the word I'm looking for, David? Archetypes. Some archetypes are so deeply embedded that we can access them a little bit more easily because they've been accessed so often. And so I think those are the kind of things where everyone will draw the exact same thing at the exact same angle. And then there are some things that we don't have an archetype for. So those have to be there's more work involved in that translation. And so that's where we see, like we're looking on screen now, that variance. Does that make sense? Does anybody want to add to that in terms of their own experience or their own perceptions of this?
Yeah,
Not
that
really.
tracks. No, that tracks.
Yeah. Okay. And then Xavier, you're back. So tell us about, because we were talking about something very similar, right? The interpretation of the cross-section of the DNA as a UFO and that alternative interpretation of the data.
Oh. Okay, we're good.
No, your data still, your audio is still not coming through.
Okay.
What we'll do is maybe for the next one, I'll send you the link individually earlier in the day, and you and I can fix your settings so that your audio comes through. Yeah. Sorry about that. So here's an example of data that's coming through different people, and it's coming through in such a strangely similar way. So Jeff, you have this man playing flute music, and John, you have the man playing the horn, preceding an announcement, something important's coming. And Claudia, you're recording that there's a high-pitched sound. And Dixon, you're also talking about there's this sound harmonious and somehow linked to rotation. So here we see differences, but also similarities. So the sketches between John and Jeff, to me, they're so much the same. It's a side view. The angle, the arms, there's so much here is the same that it's a little bit odd. It's strange. But then when we look at the Claudia, she doesn't have the sketch for it. She's just hearing the high-pitched sound. And then for Dixon, there's a little bit more the complexity of tying it into the rotation. What does that, I don't know, for me it kind of illustrates the point. What do you guys think?
One thing I see is weird is he has 3 notes and I've got 3 little. Yeah, it's very strange.
3 came up over and over again in my session.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And so Xavier, Xavier's going to be observing for now, but Xavier will read your text. So if you say something in the private chat, we'll read it out. That's all good. Sometimes the network just doesn't work very well. That's okay. So here's some.
Can I ask a question to Tom first?
Yes.
So 3 auditory things there. Are his experiences purely visual, or does he ever have an auditory component?
Great question. It is not purely visual. It's mostly visual, but there will be emotion, and every once in a while, a sound will come through. But it's not. I can't watch somebody talk in this space. It is visual, but every once in a while, a sound will come through. Best I can tell you.
Okay.
So a lot like remote viewing, I think, for some experiencers. And then this is John again. So I think, again, you're seeing this idea of the arrangement of things in a circle. And again, this is, I think, the DNA, but you're talking about the light and the glowing and just a lot of the same themes that we've been talking about. Oh, do I have you added in?
No, yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, I had a lot of weird stuff in the session, obviously. The energetic glowing, I don't know what that was. One thing that was interesting, I had this that sketch of something sliding off, and there was something beneath it. It was weird. It was like this substance. Once I knew what the reveal was, I thought maybe that was like a conceptual of like dark matter or something that's like contained inside the structure. But then it also, I remember when I had that perception, it reminded me of like grease, like dirty oil, which I don't know, someone mentioned grease earlier, but I don't know. I felt like the perception had something to do with whatever that stuff was.
And like the energetic glowing stick, I would see that as the hologram of the DNA. But the sliding off, because Tom, you were saying earlier, right, that the canes are being pulled down, pulled off, and then maybe torn open.
The word is sliding. They are slid towards the dark matter energy in the middle, or pulled. So yes, but I always think of them as sliding. That's the word I use in my mind.
Yeah. So there's good data there.
And the energetic glowing could be just the idea of the hologram, because the way he's described, when he described it of the Queen's Gambit thing, that could very well represent what I saw.
I think so. Yeah. So really good data there. And then so here we were just talking about the grays and there's something.
Do you want me to talk about this? Because this is the first time I remote viewed anything. Yeah. So this is, I didn't even know what remote viewing was. It's going back 10 years. I'm just sitting there on the couch doing my thing, seeing this stuff at Upsight Vision. I'm out in space. Best I can tell you, all of a sudden, I didn't see the outside of the ship. I'm in it. There's a glass sphere, completely clear, right? I'm looking at it. It's surrounded by these grays, and I think they're looking at an empty glass sphere. As I'm watching them, I could see closer. I realize they're looking at a town in the U.S. or a town, a town, not a city. And the eyes of the big gray aliens are following all the people. And when the person would leave one person's field of vision, the gray next to it would pick it up. It was like they were working together, almost like servers. They were working together to track everything. Well, the wild part is I'm watching this and I'm kind of looking at it, and these two grays notice me and they look at me and I'm like, wait, can they see me? And they start walking towards me, and I jumped out because I was freaked out. I didn't know that they could see me in that space. So that was my introduction to knowing that when you're doing this, something can notice you too. That's all. I just wanted to set the tone.
Okay, gotta ask, which town?
I don't know. I don't know. It was just like I didn't know.
Or any sense of where in the United States? That's really interesting.
It goes over in your
area. Midwest. That's all I can say is Midwest. That's the best I can give
Midwest. You. Okay.
Yeah, it was wild.
That's cool. And Cody did have, the topography of the top of his circle that kept coming through, that it could be the cross section of the DNA. but also I think it kind of correlates with this, and it's something Cody and I were kind of talking about. Cody, did you want to say something about this, or?
Well, yeah, that's pretty much what he just described. It was some biologicals around a table looking at the map thing, which was like a labyrinth, but it was 3D. So
And so I wonder,
I'm
are they
away
looking at
from that
the?
pretty quick.
I'm wondering if they're looking at the map of a city or if they're looking at the map of the human genome, right? And again, they're grays, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're alien grays. Like David was saying, they could be a mechanism in the system that monitors and regulates the activity of conscious beings that are in here. And so I think that, yeah, go ahead.
The way it came through was it was biologicals. It wasn't, I didn't get that it was humans or greys or whatever. It was just biologicals.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
And then Xavier has a question from Matt. With this energy, it seems like a few viewers picked up on the fact that the energy seems to be all around us and can possibly be pulled from the environment. Do you believe this is true? Do you have a concept on that?
Yeah, that's me, Tom, right? The last name's Matt, but I have two first names, but I'm assuming that's for me. Yeah,
oh, yeah,
I do.
sorry.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. We're transmitters and receivers. All we got to do is tune into it. I say all we got to do is if it's a simple thing, it's not, and we just have to pick it up. I used to call it a muscle that has to get stronger, and then I started calling it a radio you have to tune into. It's kind of both, right? It's a muscle and can call it stronger, and as it gets better, you can tune into it. But it is everywhere.
Yeah, and that's what we would maybe call the ether, the data stream. It's all around us, and you just kind of tap into it. Here, Cody again. So we have your St. James holding the shield, and Xavier. We have, and again, Xavier, you have these kind of like UFO type of things, but I think that the underlying data pattern points to them being the cross section of the DNA. You can see that you have like a hatched texture to them, and I think that's a good fit. And Jeff, what you were saying earlier about the amino acids, or right, the data etched onto the circle. So I think it's really interesting to see how people are getting the same underlying pattern of information, and it's being expressed slightly differently, but the underlying pattern is the same. So here's more from Cody, because and that's what I like, Cody, about your work, is that you do kind of keep at, okay, what is it that I'm seeing? Show me again, show me more precisely, show me more accurately, right? And I think you get great data because of that.
Yeah, so that's what was on that table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this kind of reminds me of Xavier's drawings as well, right? When he was trying to, in the early slides, the surface that we were talking about in terms of the amino acids. And then here is just a nice little correlation. And then here we were talking about 3. So Claudia, you gave us 3 balloons and 3 pillars, and Chris gave us 3 pillars, and Cody 2 sets of 3 pillars. Jeff, you gave us 3 children. You gave us 3 sets of books with secrets that are hidden inside them. I don't know if you guys are talking about the triple strand DNA, but Tom, you have that the DNA, the helix, so the 2 strands, and then you have that center one going through that you refer to as like maybe like dark matter, but you have that third in the middle. And so I think it's interesting then that Chris has it as slightly bigger, and Cody has a center one as slightly bigger. There's a difference there.
Yeah, it is different, but yeah, I see that now. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was really cool. And then this, we saw this before, so I'm just kind of harking back to this. I think there's a relationship here with the 3 crosses and the 3 suns. And it's interesting because the crosses, when you go back, you look back into the decoding of that as a symbol, it often, the cross is the zodiac. It's the sun in relationship to the celestial equator, how it moves in our sky. And so the idea of 3 suns, 3 worlds, and then the 3 crosses. So the 3 being seen from above, I think that there's a lot that we could go into there, a lot that people could explore if they're interested in these kinds of topics. So just a little bit of information there to entice people and encourage them. Uh, Cody, this is such a nice. I think I was amazed. I think that's an amazing drawing of the inner structure of the DNA helix. And what I thought was interesting is that you're saying it's a copy of an original design, and we're looking at the hologram of the original DNA, right? And so again, you're really picking up on that nuance that we saw Dixon mention. We saw it in Michael's work as well, right? That idea of your cloning, or it's a so for Tom as well, I thought that might be interesting for you to see that like these
Yeah,
remote viewers are picking up that detail.
Yeah, but you know what's funny about this one? When I saw this, I think this is like some vision yet to come. I know when I saw this, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to know what that is, but I don't know yet. That's literally the feeling I had when I saw this. Like,
That's interesting.
yeah, it's very interesting. I thought that when I had it too. I'm like, what does that mean? I don't know what it means, but I'm like, wait, I should know what this is. Why do I not know what this is? But I should know what this is. So I think while it certainly relates to what we're seeing, I think there's some other element for me that will unfold in time.
So Cody, pay attention to that, because you might have got a precog hit. Again, remote viewers can be all over the time spectrum, right? So what you're saying, Tom, is very relevant to the way that we operate, and Cody might have precogged something important that you will have a drawing or whatever in the future. It's just interesting because this, what I'm trying to point out here is this could be the first time that this sort of thing has occurred. So if this does occur, this could be a key thing that has not been recorded previously, which is that Cody drew something that you're going to see in the future, but you are so tuned in that you are able to precog, like you go like, oh, I already know that this is linked in, right? So that's a piece that's missing. Most people would not have. You got two people that are highly capable is what I'm saying. There's now a level of communication about the time that is occurring in a way that I'm not sure has been recorded yet. It has been seen before. This is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a feeling. It's that intuitive thing you just know, the inner knowing.
And there's, again, Cody has the 3 boxes above it, right? So there's something, I don't know, but I think everyone's picking up on that. There's significance there, I think, that we haven't quite unlocked yet today. I have data here from Dixon. Did you want to talk about some of this data?
Sorry, I was kind of reading it again, because a lot of
Yes,
times
I
when I
know.
have data,
I know.
I'm like, oh, I don't remember that. But yes, yeah. No, but yeah, it was definitely, I had like big, like a symbiotic like relationship. So that's like, it's a relationship between, usually described in plants or trees or organisms, that like, say, a fungus and a tree. Well, the fungus might help out the tree in certain ways, and the tree kind of gives them some kickback. But yeah, it was very interesting to like see that in more of like a light spectrum relation. But yeah, that's as far as I can go on that. Some of that stuff's kind of like automatic writing, where I really don't have any perception of what it actually is telling me.
Well, what I saw in your session here is really this idea of you're trying to communicate, or it seems like there's a communication about light acting like something alive.
Mhm.
So, right, so you're like light, but it's acting like mushrooms, fungus, living matter, right? And
Right.
I think that to me, that there's something really profound there. That's the key. Light is acting as though it's alive. It has sentience. It's communicating. It's networked, right? Like the fungus with all the network under the ground, and the symbiotic relationship that it can have. So light is having a symbiotic relationship with the humans. So we're interacting with the data stream, and it shows us things, and then we take what it shows us, and then we act in the world in accordance with what we've seen, right? So
Right. And it's like light to a lot of people is just visual, but I guess there's nothing that proves that it's the only aspect of light, is there could be sound, there could be a texture, but we just our reality and our bodies can't sense that. So I'm not sure, You know, there could be other perspectives of light that we have not, discovered yet.
Yeah, and even in terms of the texture, we've seen, right, references to like the hologram, but there's a sliminess to to the hooks being moved down. And so, yeah, definitely. I think that there's something there. And then, Tom, you mentioned earlier the idea of is upsight a genetic mutation? And so I think, so here's something in Cody's data that we mentioned earlier, the broken column, the DNA breaking and collapsing. And I think that fits in really well with what you were talking about earlier, Tom. And so, Cody, I think that was really good data.
Yeah, agreed.
And Claudia, again, as well, you really identified the DNA strands. And you're talking here about the seaweed and that Tom mentioned earlier when we were looking at Dixon's cave. And so, again, just amazing data about what it is we're talking about. And here, you drew this lizard. I think that the scales that you drew on him are the hooks. And I was wondering, like, are the hooks protecting our DNA or are they breaking it to change it? Are the changes being made to our DNA for the good or for our good, for the good of whoever's changing it, whether that's aliens or humans or this system itself, right? The broken column, what I think is interesting about this, in the symbology where the columns come from, they're linked with a chain. And so when the column is broken, then the chain is broken. And so then you have freedom, right? And so we've seen that in the data as well, that freedom to transcend, to be elevated, to become more the Superman, right? So I think that there's something to that. Claudia, you had some really excellent data about researching DNA, influencing DNA before it's used, something prior to consciousness. Do you want to talk about this? Because this is such interesting data, I think.
Yes, this was one of the last pages, and I had really the idea that it was something which had to do before the DNA, so before the state of, well, John mentioned that, Dixon, I think, about the spirit coming in the body, something like that. So prior to consciousness. Yeah, it felt as if I dig deeper and yeah, there you get this A to B. Yeah. And then this target has to do with DNA research. Yeah.
Really,
What was my question? Yeah. Thank you. And
then Jeff, in relation to Claudia's data and even some kind of a life elixir, there's a lot of there that was interesting. But then Jeff, you saw this as a bloodline. The true heredity has been constructed. Do you want to say something about this? Because I'm wondering if you see this in relation to the DNA in general or specifically to Tom, because your data in your session, I think, was very specific about Tom and his life.
I'm not sure what to say about blood in my sessions anymore because it comes up so often. I'm almost thinking it's more just an indication of a person, of a living being.
Nice.
So I'm not sure how to interpret this.
And I think that's the importance of kind of keeping track of your data, looking back over your sessions and doing that analysis and trying to figure out the patterns. Because maybe for you, blood means that there's a person of significance at the target.
That seems to be more the direction I'm going right now, but hard to say.
Yeah. And then again, so we see Cody, your breaking pillar. Feels like there are people seeing this happen. So again, you're seeing Tom. Seeing the hooks being torn off, I think maybe. And so here again, I had the container because I think there's a relationship there between the two. And then Chris, do you want to tell us a little bit about the campfire? Because we're going to see it in Evan's data as well, like a campfire. And so I want to see the relationship between the ideas that you both had for it. And you're here.
Yeah, this was an open query, so I was just asking to give me something, and this came. So, but my high-level interpretation again is that it's related with energy. So there was a lot of energy being consumed, but I wrote some stuff that don't make sense to me, like time is of the essence, and as there's the idea of doing something before it's too late. I put that it's scary but beautiful at the same time, and that it's core with nature. And there was something about finding harmony in chaos and finding some kind of balance, equilibrium out of this. Yeah, not
Yeah.
sure if it's relevant, but I have to say I forgot to do an open query, and I did it at the end of my session, so that was a bit different to what I usually do.
I think it's good, and I think, Tom, you were talking earlier about, can more people do this? Is humanity being upgraded so that we can all kind of start tapping into these abilities a little bit better? And this is what I see in Chris's data here, is that idea of like timing matters, that there's this energy and you can keep the equilibrium, and like in Dixon's data, we saw something is shifting that equilibrium. It's disbalancing it. And I think we saw it in Michael's data as well. So I think the idea of timing being important, I think that rings true to me in a lot of the people's data. Evan, what was your impression? Because you had such similar data. You have the campfire that Chris had. You also have the comment that he had. And so I wondered if you wanted, if you wanted to say something about the data here.
Yeah, there was definitely something energetic to do with the target. It was like fire, but it didn't behave like fire. It wasn't shaped exactly like fire. It was like some kind of energetic emission. To the left, that's something layered, organic, reaching for light. That is the fungal-like growth that I kept seeing. All of this was related to the structure 2 probe I was doing. It was biological in nature, and I didn't want to write it, but that was the parasitic element I had. I kept thinking space worms.
And it's interesting because Claudia also, in one point earlier in her session, had described the DNA strands as worms, but in the context of ocean and stuff like seaweed. And so I thought that was just interesting there, a little correlation there. And then more from Dixon. Oh, the idea of time and space mattering. So Dixon, you're coming in with that data as well. And then here I have your data about, here's a little bit about the ominous thing that the other John touched on in his data, that idea of sabotage. When you're looking at it all now, how do you interpret this, do you think?
Well, I kind of feel as if maybe like the dark night of the soul, that's what I would describe it, that Tom lived through, maybe, perhaps, that there was something that was purposely like embedded or some kind of code, and I sit like in a biological sense, that was meant to sabotage him or his life goals, maybe, perhaps. But I was also reading through my session there, and it was talking about how there was it was almost like to go along with, they were talking like a blood, like not bloodline, or what we were describing with the blood was that there was like just an agreed upon protection of this information and to move it around from place to place, and it was definitely to keep a secret. But
well, it felt like that again. The dark night of the soul. It did not seem like a normal breakdown. Not that I've ever had a breakdown, but it just did not. It seemed like there were other elements at work, and I wrote about that in my book. Like it was not just a typical somebody. Again, as if there was a typical somebody disconnecting from reality. I mean, I talk about thinking my kids were aliens. All these. If I had a thought, I would believe it and I would act on it. It was not normal. It was parasitical. It was everything like you're talking about right here, or it seemed like it's like that. So, but the wild, it was like a psychic boot camp. And coming out of it, it's I don't want to say I'm immune to it, but everything is scarred and it can't get through, or vaccinated, for another word. Any word that protects you from this space with the parasitic element.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah. So I think that's good data. And then here's, people picking up on the colors of the hologram. Cody, you did a great job of that.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Because Cody, you do use color, but usually I don't think you use it. It's not like every session, right? It's just occasionally.
Whenever
I
I
try to. Yeah,
see
that
you
just
use
comes through
it,
like that.
Yeah, it's just really pretty because it. Most of your stuff is like just one color, right? It's like, yeah. Anyways, it's just awesome. I can see it.
Well, that implies that like at some point in the session, it was like he had the intuitive thought to use color.
So how that come about? I got sick of the circle thing, and I moved myself to the actual target, and that's how it was coming through. Because I thought I was just describing the same thing over and over, so I moved myself to that, and that's what come up.
whenever I see you use color, Cody, you use it accurately. I see the same with Chris as well. Both of you don't use color everywhere, but where you do use it, it tends to be extremely precise, relevant, and adds to the data. And so here you're describing the hologram, the light, the colors of it, and it's just perfect. So I thought that was amazing. And for the audience who've just joined us recently, this was done under blind conditions. The only thing that the remote viewers were given in terms of information about the target was a random code with 8 letters and numbers. That's it. They weren't given any other information. They weren't given a category. They weren't given anything at all except for, here's your target code. Here's when it's due. Enjoy. And so I think that is really spectacular examples of remote viewing. And so Dixon, you've already talked about this, but like this idea of changes maybe to the DNA. You were just talking about that, the dark night of the soul, maybe. And I think this is really relevant. The warning may cause the urge to think for oneself. And Tom, it sounds as though you really went through this really hard time, this transition period. But now that you've come out of it, it's kind of unlocked your abilities in a certain freedom to be able to do what you're doing and talk about it in this way.
Well, when I started talking about this last year on podcasts, I thought it was the change was from the drug use. And I was convinced that was what it was going to be, but it's not. It's trauma. People come forward. Again, you can get the free PDF on the website, but I get emails from people all the time saying they have this. And I wrote the 8 stages of Upsight Vision to let you know what stage you might be in, because people have it, but they don't have it to the degree I do, or most don't. So I wrote this. I was like, you know what? People are going through this. This is what we're talking about. Are we changing? I say there's no doubt. Clearly, there's no doubt to me. I don't think it's just me. I'm the first one to notice it. It's like Roger Bannister running the 4-minute mile. I just happen to be the first one. Once people realize it and start focusing on it and realize they can do it, it's going to be quantum or exponential study of this and people realizing it. And it's going to go from like language. That's the best way I can compare it to. Like language all of a sudden went through our planet, I don't know how many years ago.
Yeah, but that's what I was feeling about, it's like we all have our ups and downs as human beings, and not to like generalize anybody's experiences, but it's like I really resonated with that one, and it was it did feel like I got the aesthetic of it. It felt like it was the end of the world happening, but it was like we have to accept those kind of things in order to to change our own reality, because we do as souls or whatever have that ability, it seems like. But
yeah,
I think so. Yeah. Yes. So just excellent data there. And then Chris, I think you described Tom here. Tom, am I misremembering? Did you sell medical equipment at some point?
Yeah, no, yeah, I didn't say, I love this image. I don't know. I don't understand it at all. It's not me. I had a mustache when I was younger, but it's been a minute. I worked in healthcare. Well, no, I worked in advertising. So some of our clients were healthcare clients, like hospital advertising for a hospital in the Atlanta area, that kind of thing.
Okay. And then we had Evan, I think, drew a good representation of you with the holograms around you. And I think it's funny because in my Hill session, I saw holograms and I didn't know how to translate onto the page, sketch what I was seeing. And I did do these little kind of S-curly things. So when I saw it in Evan's session, I kind of laughed because I was like, yeah, that's how I draw little holograms. So Evan, I think that a really good job here. And Tom, I saw your note. And again, so here from Evan, wizard like Gandalf, right? So that's coming through in a few people's session. And Jeff, I think as well, an approximation of Tom. So good data here. And then Cody, I think the idea of the purpose of this person seeing things from a unique perspective and this being a discovery of some kind. I think that that's really amazing data about what this target is all about. And then this I thought was a bit weird in Claudia's data, feeling that something is holding you back, that you couldn't go deep. You keep getting hung up on these branches. So those are the hooks that are holding you back. So I thought that was kind of funny. But at the same time, there was in some of the more ominous feeling data, that idea of being held back, being in a prison. We saw, a little bit of that data in this slide deck, more of it in the slide deck that I sent to the viewers. And John, you also had the idea of a barrier that's holding back aggressive life forms. So did you guys want to say something about this?
Well, for me, the holding back aggressive life forms, I couldn't tell if that was maybe conceptual for something at the molecular level or something going on with the structure or something of the DNA, or if it was, we're talking about something going on with intent affecting us. I wasn't sure to make of that, to be honest.
Yeah, I had the idea that almost every sketch had the tree or the branches or something grew in the container thing. So I mentioned somewhere also the mycelium, and I saw that Dixon also mentioned that. So that's it struck me. Yeah.
And so then first of all, thank you to all the viewers. Dixon had to go, and Michael's camera's off, but I don't think we have the spot for the 11th person at the moment. But there you are, Michael. So I'll just put you in and out. But all the viewers did exceptionally well. You got amazing data. There was so much more there. I think in terms of getting the target contact was amazing, and it was really fun to see. Thank you for putting in the work. Thank you for making it legible for me. I really appreciate that. For people in the audience, if you want to participate in future live streams, don't be shy. Xavier, thank you so much for participating. You had some really good data, really, really strong target contact. I'm sorry that we couldn't get your audio working really well, but we'll make sure for next time that we can figure that out for you. And I will we'll have to switch off of StreamYard and find some other platform that lets us have more than 10 people in the room at once. So I do apologize that I've been switching people in and out for the past couple of hours. Before I go to the viewers for their maybe I'll go to the viewers first for their final thoughts before we get Tom to summarize. Or David, what did you want to say?
Yeah, I think because Tom's hard stop, he might have a lot to say. I don't know, but
I won't take up too much time. First of all, thanks for everyone for participating in this. I was blown away. My first takeaway, I'm sure I'll process this over the next couple of days, was that you can remote view at this scale. right? That this, and not only at this scale, but that what you can't typically see. So again, it's not an electron microscope to see this DNA strand. It's going to be some other type of technology that we actually can use, whether we know it or not. So we're going to invent something. There's going to be a technology based on the stuff that we're doing now. I don't know what it is. So that's kind of wild. And I didn't know that until now. I didn't know people can remote view it. I intuited they could. And I was going to use this example as a control to see if someone else had upside vision. That was the intent around this DNA, one of the intents. But I've seen so many other elements of our 3D world, our biological world, our electromagnetic world operating and interacting with this space that this I used to hold on to for years, thinking it was so special. Now it's like it's one of many. I love that I talked about it here because I have other things to use as a control to test. If somebody says, wow, I have upside vision. Okay, we'll still use this perhaps, but there's other things too. My point is there's so many things coming forward. I could make the case that it's speeding up, right? We're talking about time. And it feels like it's speeding up. It feels like more people are coming forward. I'm getting better at it. Other people are coming out of the works with this ability that they're starting to tune into. Almost like if we all tune into it, we're going to all hear better because we're all going to be able to hear the sound. The more people tune into it, the more people are going to be able to pick it up because the rest of us are tuning into it. Then they can tune into it. And I don't know what the payoff is, but it's hopeful and it's good. And it's not, we're going to need it for some reason, but there's hope. There you go. Thank you, guys.
I love that. Thank you so much. And thank you for coming on again. You know, we really enjoyed our conversation with you last time. Yeah. And for the audience, check out Tom's website. His work is a free PDF download about Upsight Vision. He has instructions for how to do it. He's doing readings now as well. So I just think that that's fantastic. And it was really nice to be able to task the viewers with something like this and to see, like you said, remote viewers can see what you see.
Yeah.
Right? That's fantastic.
Yeah, it is. It is. So, yeah.
Yeah, really appreciate your time, Tom. Appreciate you coming. And the opportunity, you know, for us as remote viewers is pretty rare. If we were to do World War II as a target or something like that, we only have research to help us validate any of the data that might be collected, right? But to actually have an individual who's the focal point and they can say, hey, that's good, that's not good, this is kind of the ballpark, right? I can't explain to you how rare that is, and also to have and the value of it essentially for the viewers to be able to see that, like, wow, that makes it more tangible to them, you know, if they're a beginner viewer, as an example. So yeah, I just appreciate your coming on.
Yeah, no, I'm happy.
And you're also you're a very good communicator, very articulate. So I just want to say that, like, when I watch you interact with us, I'm like, I can learn stuff from this guy. This probably is because of your marketing training, but I'm just saying, like, I notice it. Your skill level is very high. So I just in general appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right, guys, I got to run. This was a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Right. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
And then for the viewers, what are your thoughts? What are your summaries?
Thought it was a really cool target.
It was a strange one.
Yeah, it was a bit unusual. For me, it was really everything about energy. And I really have the impression that it's linked somehow to the way we decode reality, and that there's a glitch for him, or he manages to perceive something additional that we don't visually. So yeah, that's really my take on it.
For me, it was a fascinating target. I don't know what to make of it. A little over my head, all that stuff. I don't know about over my head, but just seeing all the data, and it's amazing that how much, you know, seemed to match what he saw, and you know, the fact that he was, you know, kind of that amazed or impressed by it, you know, speaks to how well everyone did, I think. But yeah, no, very interesting target. Coming up with the data on something so non-physical is fascinating. So seeing everyone's data was very cool.
Yes.
Yeah, I found one pretty hard to understand. It was confused the whole time. I didn't know what was going on. But it was fun.
feel like you always say that, Cody.
I know.
You,
I was
always say
gonna
you don't
say,
know what's going on, and then you just draw the shit that's exactly it's out on the target.
that's the thing, Cody. You always say, I don't know what's going on, but your data is so good. So I always kind of
I'm
think
still
it's
trying
good.
to wrap my head around it.
No, it's good. If you don't know what it's all about, when you end your session, when you're done and you're like, what the heck was that? That's a good sign because it means you didn't add filler. You weren't guessing. You weren't, right? Like you weren't trying to push in your own
Look,
ideas and
I
interpretations.
couldn't even do a summary. Like there was just so much random stuff. I'm like, what do you put in? What do you leave out? I was like, I'm not even doing it.
Yeah. No, I think you did really, really well. Yeah. Claudia?
Yes, I looked through my session and I also sketched a location. So after the reveal, I thought, what the heck? What location is this? Because you cannot match it with this concept. But yeah, it was really. I saw the interview you had with him this afternoon, and yeah, I see it like that. That everyone who is psychic sees the things in a different way, and he clearly sees then the holograms. So yeah, so it's special. It's different. But therefore, I liked David's question: do you see it the whole time? Because if you see it the whole time, you'll get crazy, I think. So it's only when he focuses, right? Did I understand it well? Because I was still struggling with my laptop and the noise. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's when he focuses. So, like with remote viewing, he has to have the intent to see, and then he sees.
Yeah, like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
On
I
the
think.
location,
Sorry.
Claudia, I also did the location, and I
Oh,
also
yeah?
thought, damn, why did I do a location? It doesn't make sense. But actually, I drew kind of Italy, which is the candy cane. So the location of interest
Yeah.
was that point. You can see it like that.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't know if it's far fetched or not, but to me, it makes.
Well, I had
sense.
an island, and then what important was that the sweet water was mixing with the salt water. So I don't know what the I have to think about it. What that could be in this whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the whole thing about the checkboard people was also interesting, right?
Yes.
Oh, we're still live.
That's okay. That's okay. We can mention that.
Okay. But yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, it's very, very special, and I like the target. Yeah.
Nice. I'm glad. And Jeff, what did you think?
So working this target, it had a very different feel, and I think it speaks to what David talked about, that there was going to be feedback from the real person involved. I don't know why I say that, but it's almost like that's why this felt different to work.
Interesting.
There was almost more of a, not more, but a different connection to the data.
Can you quantify that in some way? Was it just a feeling? Like, was it more detailed or more immersive or
so
surreal?
This is the only word I can. It's like suede. It had more of a tactile feel to it. It was like fuzzy. It was like Velcro, if you will. It was like something it was stuck to me.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's.
And by the way, did you have you been remote viewing my fashion?
No, I have not.
How dare you?
I had one more thought when I was in the back room. We're off stage. So in the 1940s and 50s, hats were very popular. And then after hats kind of went out of fashion, UFOs became popular. And what if UFOs are just hats in the air? I was just
That's funny.
Really?
Giants. Invisible giants.
What did you think of the pilgrim's hat bringing us to St. James, which unlocked Cody's warrior protector?
amazing how synchronicities like that just sort of happen. So yeah, that's fun. I don't know what more to say about it.
Yeah, I thought it was really shocking to me. Michael, what did you think?
Yeah, it's quite interesting how a lot of the data kind of tied together in kind of curious ways to kind of show Tom's experience of the world there. Yeah, for myself, I was kind of picking up on some like major kind of implications as well too, just like that this is how things are structured, but it can be kind of tenuous, and that, you know, if this could be like abused in extreme ways with extreme effects somehow. I'm kind of wondering if that relates to like, you know, DNA being switched on and off and the kind of changes it can induce in us, maybe perhaps from environmental effects and things like that in the future. So
Yeah.
quite a few curious places to take it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead, Claudia.
No, it was interesting what Jeff said in the beginning, that with regards to the sugar thing, the candy bars, candy canes. Yeah. Well.
Yeah, tell us again, Jeff, for the audience that's joined us.
So the hook aspect is what you focused on. Being a candy person, I focused on sugar. So sugar is sucrose, sugar, there's lots of different sugars. So fructose, dextrose, ribose is one of the rare ones, but ribose is what makes up the backbone of DNA and holds everything all together. So it's a sugar like glucose, but it's just a little different. And
so it's something necessary in the DNA.
So some people call ribose an essential sugar because you need it in your body in order to actually make the DNA.
Yeah, and it's interesting that he sees it as candy canes, right? And so
so to me, that means sugar, some sort of sweet, some sort of sugar. But I think the representation of a hook, and then also something that hooks and tears, I mean, all of those are valid, definitely.
Yes. Yeah.
It says it's a 5-carbon. Sugar, that sugar is a 5-carbon. It shows as like a pentagram, kind of like a I forget what it's called, but
pentagon.
5 size. Yeah, pentagon.
And Xavier, do you want to try? We'll see if your audio is working or not. To get some closing thoughts from you. Oh, you're frozen, I think. Yeah.
He might have left.
I think he jumped off.
Oh no, he's.
Oh no, he's in. He's just
moving.
You look like a still image. Yeah, and then Evan, did you give your closing thoughts?
Yeah, I just love to do a follow-up. A number of viewers had this idea of something ominous, something coming down the track. I'd love to know what Tom thinks about that, how it relates.
You know, I think one of the things he said was, at first he thought it was the drugs that unlock this ability he has for Upsight Vision, for seeing holograms. And he has since realized it was the trauma that he experienced. And remote viewers, I think, know that, you know, most of us have either been electrocuted or have gone through trauma, or we have genetic lineages that give us these psychic abilities, right? But trauma is one of the things that can unlock psychic ability. And so it's interesting that now he's like, okay, maybe it's that. And he mentioned this idea that we're at a time where it might be important for more and more people to start unlocking their psychic abilities, right? And so rather than having to traumatize the humans in order for them to unlock their abilities, there are other ways of doing it, right? There are pleasant ways. Julia Mossbridge talks about her research that shows instead of traumatizing people to make them psychic, you can expose them to unconditional love and then give them the training to do psychic things, and they're able to tap into their psychic ability. So I think that in the past, people just stumbled onto the idea that, oh, if you traumatize children, then you can have a psychic in your family and you can use that person to predict things for you, to make your family more wealthy and successful. But I think now we're finally in a place as a civilization where we're saying, or we could do it in a different way. And so I'm very supportive of Tom's message of saying, you don't have to go through what he went through in order to get Upsight Vision. And as remote viewers, I think I know that you don't need to go through trauma. You just need training, an open mind, and maybe being electrocuted as a child, I think helps a lot, but it's not necessary. What do you guys think?
Well, I do think that it's just a locked area of your brain which opens due to something from outside, or mushrooms, or drugs, or trauma, or electrocution. I never heard of that, but something is, it is there, the ability, but something opens it. That's my belief.
Yeah,
I don't think I had a single psychic experience in my life until I saw a documentary about remote viewing. I mean, not that I can verify. So I'd be one of the people that falls in the category, never thought it was a cool idea, but like never thought it was actually a real thing, or never understood it, and never ever thought I would ever be able to do it. So there's lots.
Until you tried it.
Till I tried it. That's right.
Yeah. I think training. People just need training. And their natural ability is there.
Well,
and if the training is good, you unlock it. If the training sucks, maybe you don't unlock it as much.
yeah, I think what Claudia said is correct. So another way I would look at it, maybe that people, it's just a different perspective, maybe not, but psychic ability is not embraced globally as a real thing, right? We're not taught as kids like, this is real, and so therefore do da 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 da, like do these exercises, use it this way, blah 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 blah. It's not treated like that, right? So how does change occur? Internally or externally? Internally, we are not taught it's real, so we're not going, the majority of people are not seeking it ever. They don't have training, they don't have tools, they don't have anything, right? I mean, are they out there remote viewing? Yes, of course, but I'm saying, like, in a general sense, the global public is not motivated to internally manifest psychic abilities because a lot of them don't believe it's even real. So therefore, the default falls back to external. Stress, trauma, right? So it's like, this is just sort of random stuff that's happening externally that forces it to pop out. It's like, yeah, because it's real, guys. So it's like, if you switched your thinking globally, you could turn it around and approach it from the interior, which is meditation, remote viewing, these other tools, right? But I'm just saying, that's just my opinion. So what Claudia said in my mind is correct. I'm just saying the reason we don't see that and they see this idea of external trauma being the solution is because of the environment that we've created is creating that condition that make people go, oh, it must be trauma. Yes, that's one way, but if we just switched our thinking and said, this is real, let's now approach it through methodical, practices and, that kind of thing. Now all of a sudden the internal becomes more dominant, right?
That's why I think what Tom is doing is important. What Julia's doing is important. The idea, and I think that's what Jake Barber came out and said, oh, the government does psionics, and basically they kidnap people from third world countries that are going through some kind of a disaster, and then they traumatize them even more, maybe torture them a little bit, and then unlock their psychic abilities and use them as instruments, right, to summon UFOs. And he was saying he's starting this new company where they want to do it kindly by drugging people and giving them all kinds of disorienting experiences until they are so panicked in their drug-induced craze that it unlocks the fight or flight response, the survival response, and that gets the psychic abilities to kick in. To me, that's just as ridiculous. What are you doing? Like, you don't need to do that. Julia is showing the love. I feel like with full spectrum illumination, I think that there's nothing horrible. We don't go into unconditional love. We don't go into drugs. We don't go into trauma. We just teach you how to connect to the data stream. Like, I think you're right, David, that people have, it's people don't know what they're doing. It's like people who've never had a language and they're just kind of grunting and shouting at each other. And then someone just comes and says, oh, hey, you could just make these sounds. And I don't know, maybe attribute them or associate them with these things and then use those sounds for the right. Like it just feels like it's so basic, but nobody's kind of done that for the humans when it comes to psychic ability. So instead, we're poking people, prodding them with sticks, or we're drugging them or putting them into survival situations, drowning them.
That's
so
that's called MK Ultra, by the way.
Yeah. Yes. And
Yeah.
and now they're trying, oh my goodness, they're trying to do that now with AI. But the thing is, AI doesn't have a survival mode. It's ridiculous. But the point is that I think that's why I'm very excited to see that people are interested in Upsight Vision. People are interested in remote viewing, that we're seeing people who are willing to be open to the idea that it's real. We're seeing a lot of people talk about it being real. And so now we just have to somehow get the idea out there that you don't need these extreme situations to unlock your psychic ability. You just need proper training, I think. That's my take.
Yeah, it's the same
Yeah,
as a musical
sure.
instrument. Huh?
Yes.
Some people are virtuos and get super good very fast. Everybody can learn to play the piano, but some people can do it for 20 years and be meh. Some people can do it for 1 year and be like a Mozart.
Yes.
So I think it's
But
a
everybody
thing.
can do it.
Everybody can do it to some extent.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also you need to put the work in, and some people have it easier than others.
Well, what's interesting is Tom thinks that everyone's going to need to do it fairly soon. Why?
Well, if the electricity grid goes out, if cell phone, if internet goes down, if there's some kind of, if the magnetic field collapses, then you're going to need other ways of communicating with other people. And so, but again, I think instead of using the fear to push people into wanting to develop their psychic abilities, we should be motivated by the joy of expanding ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much for all of this. I'm going to turn off the YouTube. For the YouTube audience, thank you so much. Thank you to the chat. You had some great questions, some great insights. We appreciate that always. If you want to see our interview with Tom, we did it on our Magic in the Noise Unlisted channel. So we have 2 channels on YouTube. We have our main channel where we do live streams, remote viewing results. We do David and I kind of RV results. And then we have an unlisted channel that's not unlisted. It was when it started. And that's where we have our interviews, tips and tricks, different things that we're testing out. And we kind of share that stuff there. And that's where our interview with Tom is. And it's in the link in the description box below this video. So you can check that out. My full spectrum illumination remote viewing training is starting in November. So if you are interested, send me a message and I'll have you do a little bit of a target to get a sense of where your skill is at. And then we can talk further from there. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming. And let's say goodbye to the YouTube audience. Good night to the YouTube audience.
Bye-bye.
Bye.